Remember, 47 minutes is not a reconciliation. It is not some cozy, warm family get-together where everyone is absolutely thrilled to see each other. It is an absolute nightmare, and Meghan Markle reportedly felt thoroughly humiliated by how the entire trip unfolded. You know, they always say that time heals all wounds, but apparently 47 minutes is just enough time to realize that some bridges have been burned straight down to the absolute ground. I mean, think about the sheer audacity of it all. You spend 5 whole years publicly trashing your own flesh and blood on global television, crying on Oprah's couch, releasing whiny docuseries selling out every single intimate family secret for a massive Netflix paycheck, and then what, you just expect to waltz right back into the royal living room like absolutely nothing ever happened. It is honestly mind-boggling the level of sheer entitlement we are dealing with here. But hey, that is the Sussex brand in a nutshell, isn't it? Pure unfiltered delusion. Tom Bower has just uncovered what really happened during that widely discussed 47-minute meeting at Highgrove House. And by the end of this video, it is going to become abundantly clear why those 47 minutes shifted the entire royal picture in a massive, irreversible way. What was supposed to be a carefully staged moment to help rebuild family ties, instead became a tightly controlled, icy encounter that left behind far more questions than answers. Welcome back to Royal Insider Network, by the way. If you are as utterly fascinated, or frankly as completely exhausted by this endless Meghan and Harry circus as I am, do me a quick favor right now. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and drop a like on this video. We bring you the deep dive breakdowns and the raw royal truths that Montecito desperately tries to sweep under the rug every single week. So join the network, leave a comment with your thoughts, and let us get right into what really went down behind palace walls. Because today, we are stripping away the public relations fluff and looking at the cold, hard reality of Prince Harry's latest dash back to the United Kingdom. On the surface, the Montecito spin machine tried to tell us this was a sweet, emotional trip to bring Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet to see their grandfather, King Charles. They wanted the world to believe that the king was practically begging for a reunion. But according to investigative biographer Tom Bower, the reality behind those closed doors was a brutal wake-up call for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. They walked in expecting a grand royal reset, hoping to grab some fresh royal legitimacy to salvage their crumbling American empire. Instead, they walked straight into a masterfully engineered trap set by a king who has officially run out of patience. Now, to truly understand why this 47-minute meeting was so ridiculously tense, you have to ask yourself one very simple question. Why now? Why this sudden, desperate urge from Harry and Meghan to reconnect with the very institution they spent half a decade branding as toxic, racist, and oppressive? Well, as the old saying goes, you just have to follow the money, don't you? Let us be completely real about where the Sussexes stand right now over in California. The Hollywood dream they tried so hard to sell us is flatlining on life support. Think about the timeline here. First, their multi-million-dollar Spotify deal collapsed in a massive cloud of public embarrassment, with top podcast executives literally calling them grifters on international media. Then their colossal Netflix deal started looking increasingly shaky, with project after project getting quietly scrapped or shelved due to a total lack of original ideas. And let us not even get started on Meghan's lifestyle brand, American Riviera Orchard. What was supposed to be her big, glorious return to commercial stardom has devolved into an absolute mockery, plagued by trademark rejections, delayed product launches, and endless supply chain headaches. I mean, nobody asked for $40 jars of overpriced jam from a former royal who spent years complaining about her immensely privileged life. The harsh reality is that without a direct, tangible connection to the British royal family, Harry and Meghan are completely out of gas. Their commercial value is nosediving at an alarming rate. They have massive, eye-watering bills to pay every single month. We are talking about astronomical security costs, heavy mortgages on their sprawling Montecito mansion, and a bloated public relations team working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, just to keep their names in the headlines. They are burning through cash like water, but the income streams are drying up fast. They suddenly realized within a window of maybe 5 years at best that they are facing a very real, very terrifying financial wall. They thought they could step away from royal duties, build a billion-dollar global brand based purely on complaining about their family, and live like Hollywood royalty forever. But when you are mocked so publicly on global television shows, when your commercial projects face endless scrutiny, and when the American public starts getting utterly sick of your non-stop whining, your prestige vanishes. And that is where the desperation kicks in. Harry and Meghan desperately needed a shot of royal stardust. They needed to show the world, and more importantly, their corporate sponsors, that they still have direct, intimate access to the King of England. They needed to prove that the Sussex brand still carries official royal weight anywhere in the world. Because without that royal link, they are just two overly entitled celebrities living in California, wallowing in a maze of their own making. So what did they do? They decided to use the Invictus Games as their ultimate Trojan horse. As the founder of the Games, Prince Harry already had a legitimate, well-established reason to be in the United Kingdom for the Birmingham events. It was the perfect public cover. On paper, it looked like a trip dedicated entirely to his long-standing commitment to wounded servicemen and women. But behind the scenes, according to Tom Bauer, the entire trip was calculated to serve a much larger, much sneakier objective. Harry desperately wanted to work his way back in. He brought Meghan, he brought the children, and he tried to orchestrate a grand return so they could reclaim their lost status, rebuild their public image, and somehow monetize their presence in Britain once again. They thought they had framed it all so brilliantly. They thought King Charles would be so overwhelmed with emotion at the prospect of seeing his grandchildren that he would open the palace gates with open arms and give them everything they wanted. They thought Invictus gave them the ultimate leverage to force a royal reconciliation on their own terms. But what happened next is where the story takes a truly surprising turn, and where their grand comeback plan started to completely unravel. Before that infamous Highgrove meeting even took place, the Sussexes tried to play their usual game of public relations chess with the palace, and this is where their total lack of self-awareness really blew up in their faces. According to various reports and commentary, the royal household actually extended a very polite, very generous olive branch to Prince Harry prior to his arrival. They offered him and his family accommodation inside Buckingham Palace for the duration of their stay in the United Kingdom. Now think about that for a second. Buckingham Palace is self-evidently one of the most secure, heavily guarded buildings in the entire world. It offers top-tier military-grade protection, luxurious private apartments, and total privacy, away from the prying eyes of the paparazzi. For a man who spends half his life complaining about his severe lack of security in London, you would think this offer was an absolute dream come true, right? Well, not if you are Prince Harry. Instead of simply accepting the offer like a normal human being, Harry hesitated. He started playing games. He didn't respond to the palace's offer straight away. Instead, in a move that shocked even seasoned royal watchers, a self-funded security report detailing a supposed colossal terror threat he faces in London was mysteriously leaked to ITV News. He basically tried to argue that London was far too dangerous for his family, claiming that the terror threat somehow applied to the capital, but miraculously didn't apply to Birmingham, which is just a 2-hour drive away. He essentially told his own family that Buckingham Palace wasn't safe enough or fit enough for the heir to the throne. It was a classic Sussex maneuver. They wanted to create a dramatic narrative of being persecuted, unsafe, and denied proper royal protection by the British government. But this time, the palace decided they were absolutely done playing along with Harry's ridiculous media games. They didn't engage in a public back and forth. They didn't beg him to accept the rooms. Instead, the palace took total control of the situation. By the time Harry finally changed his mind and tried to accept the offer, the palace coolly informed his team that the arrangements had shifted and the offer of Buckingham Palace was no longer available. Just like that, the invitation was completely withdrawn at the last minute. Imagine the utter humiliation of that moment. Harry was arriving in Britain and the palace officially shut the door on his accommodation. His spokesperson had to go to the media and awkwardly confirm that the offer to stay at Buckingham Palace had been pulled. It was a massive public slap in the face. Harry tried to flex his royal muscle, and the palace responded by quietly, efficiently putting him right back in his place. They stripped him of the ultimate royal backdrop. Can you imagine how furious Meghan must have been? They wanted the media to capture images of their motorcade sweeping through the grand gates of Buckingham Palace. They wanted that visual association with the seat of the British monarchy to boost their failing Hollywood reputation. Instead, they were effectively locked out and forced to make alternative private arrangements. That sudden withdrawal sent shockwaves through online discussions. People immediately started reading between the lines. It proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that every single detail of this visit was being tightly managed and monitored by the king's senior advisors. The palace was making it crystal clear that Harry and Meghan could no longer dictate terms, leak stories to the press, and expect special treatment whenever it suited their narrative. They realized that Harry's ultimate goal was to monetize his presence in the United Kingdom, to act like a working royal on a pseudo-royal tour, and then turn around and sell the insider details to the highest bidder in America. The palace effectively said, on the very days you are dealing with legal judgments and being called utterly unreliable, you are not going to walk back into Buckingham Palace and besmirch the royal family even further. That revoked offer was a massive public embarrassment for the couple, but it was really just the surface level. Because what King Charles did inside that 47-minute meeting was the real fatal blow to their comeback tour. When the moment for the actual face-to-face meeting finally arrived, King Charles demonstrated a level of strategic brilliance that completely caught the Sussexes off guard. Look, the king was placed in an extraordinarily difficult position. On one hand, he is the monarch responsible for protecting the 1,000-year-old institution of the crown from two individuals who have done everything in their power to undermine it. On the other hand, he is a father and a grandfather who naturally wants to see his grandchildren, Archie and Lilibet. Harry and Meghan knew this emotional vulnerability existed, and they fully intended to exploit it. They banked on the king being soft, malleable, and willing to forgive and forget just for a brief photo opportunity with his young grandkids. If King Charles had refused to see them all together, the Sussex PR machine would have immediately launched a global smear campaign. They would have painted Charles as a cold, heartless, unfeeling grandfather who turned his own flesh and blood away at the door. So Charles didn't give them that victory. He allowed the meeting to happen, but he dictated the terms down to the precise minute. He summoned them to Highgrove House, his secluded country residence in Gloucestershire, far away from the public eye and media cameras in London. On a Friday, a fleet of about 20 cars drove into the grounds of Highgrove for what was officially described as a private function with Harry, Meghan, and the kids hidden quietly inside one of those vehicles. And then the timer started. The king granted them exactly 47 minutes. Think about how extraordinarily brief that is for a family reunion after years of painful separation. 47 minutes is not a warm, relaxed catch-up over tea. It is a strictly timed, business-like audience. It was designed so that there was zero time for deep emotional manipulation, zero time for circular arguments about past grievances, and zero time for Harry to launch into his usual rants about security or his brother William. It was a quick, controlled high and by. More importantly, King Charles laid down ironclad rules regarding public exposure. There would be no official royal photographers present at Highgrove. There would be no released portraits of the king with Archie and Lilibet. There would be no official palace statements confirming the details of the discussion. Absolutely nothing. The meeting was classified as strictly private, personal, and entirely off the record. By doing this, the king effectively neutered Meghan's entire commercial strategy. She wanted that iconic, highly valuable photograph of the king embracing her children. A photo that could be plastered across international magazine covers, posted on social media, or featured in her next documentary to instantly re-establish their royal credentials. By denying them that photo, Charles drew an impenetrable line in the sand between private family contact and official royal life. He sent an unmistakable message to the world, and specifically to corporate Hollywood. You can come visit his family under strict boundaries, but you will not use the British monarchy as a backdrop for your commercial branding. You will not monetize your proximity to the crown. You will not get a pseudo-royal tour. The king showed immense compassion as a grandfather by opening his home, but total unyielding firmness as a sovereign by locking down the narrative. Supporters of the Sussexes tried to argue online that this brief meeting was a major breakthrough, a sign that the king was wavering and ready to welcome them back half in, half out. But those who understand royal protocol saw it for exactly what it was, a masterclass in risk management. Charles knew that Prince William and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, have absolute zero intention of allowing any rehabilitation of the Sussexes in Britain. William and Kate know the immense damage Harry and Meghan have caused, and they refuse to play along with their games. The king balanced his love for his son with his duty to the heir and the institution. He ensured that no photos could be used to confuse the public about the line of succession or create friction with William and Kate. It was the royal family versus the Sussexes, and on that Friday at Highgrove, the royal family won handily. But to guarantee that this tight control was maintained and that no fake stories were leaked afterward, the king had one more secret weapon waiting in the room. That secret weapon was none other than Queen Camilla. Now let us take a moment to really process what her presence in that room actually meant. We all know what Harry wrote about Camilla in his memoir Spare. He called her dangerous, he labeled her a villain, and he publicly blamed her for leaking stories to the press to bolster her own image. He threw immense amounts of mud at his stepmother on a global platform. So for Queen Camilla to sit right there during this 47-minute meeting at Highgrove was an incredible, highly deliberate power move. Her presence was anything but routine. Bauer suggests that Camilla sat in that room for one primary vital reason: to act as an official trusted witness. Look, the royal family has learned the hard way over the last 5 years that private conversations with Harry and Meghan never stay private. Every single time someone extends an olive branch, it somehow ends up being detailed in a book blabbed to Gayle King on American morning television or spun into a Netflix documentary. The trust between Harry and his family is not just fractured, it is completely, utterly destroyed. The royals know that if Charles met Harry alone, Harry could easily walk out of that room and tell the world that his father broke down in tears, apologized for everything, and begged him to come back to royal duties. With Queen Camilla sitting right there in the room, watching every single eye movement, listening to every single word, that strategy was completely neutralized. She was there to keep the conversation calm, formal, and strictly accountable. She was the human tape recorder. If Harry tried to raise his voice, demand money, or twist the narrative later, Camilla was there to verify exactly what was said and shut down any false leaks before they could take root in the press. She ensured there would be no ground for Harry or Meghan to claim recollections may vary this time around. Can you even imagine how intensely awkward that atmosphere must have been, Harry and Meghan sitting across from the very woman they publicly vilified, knowing she held all the cards and was monitoring their every breath? It reportedly felt cold, restrained, and emotionally distant. There was no warm embrace, no cozy catch-up, and certainly no exchange of friendly gifts. One royal commentator even joked online that Camilla certainly didn't hand Meghan a jar of Highgrove honey or jam as a parting present to help her failing lifestyle brand, considering Highgrove jam actually tastes like real quality produce compared to whatever slop Meghan is trying to market over in California. The sheer awkwardness of the encounter highlighted just how deep the chasm between them really is. This level of extreme caution proves that the palace no longer treats Harry as a prince of the realm. They treat him like a massive liability. They treat him and his wife like corporate spies who need to be carefully monitored, managed, and escorted off the premises the second the clock runs out. The king and queen made sure that strict ground rules were established before they even stepped foot on the property. No leaking, no pictures, and no reporting to the press. The message was loud and clear. If a single detail of this meeting is leaked to the media in the coming weeks, whatever tiny microscopic thread of trust remains will be severed permanently and forever. Bauer points out that the old era is officially over. The era where simply being associated with the royal family could instantly boost a person's business appeal or public standing has completely faded for the Sussexes. They have burnt their bridges so thoroughly that even a brief cup of tea at Highgrove is surrounded by legalistic boundaries and witness protocols. They thought they could manipulate an aging, soft-hearted king into giving them a massive public relations win. Instead, they were met with an impenetrable wall of royal authority, backed by a queen who was not going to let them cause any more damage to the monarchy. With Camilla watching every move, there was zero room for manipulation. And Meghan's reaction as they finally left Highgrove said absolutely everything. When those 47 minutes finally ticked away, the reality of their massive failure hit Harry and Meghan like a freight train. They walked out of Highgrove House with absolutely nothing to show for their efforts. Think about their checklist coming into this trip. Did they get a grand public photo with the king? None. Did they get their accommodation at Buckingham Palace restored? None. Did they get the British government to pay for their high-level security detail? Absolutely not. Did they get any indication that their half-in, half-out royal status would be reconsidered? Not a chance in world. Meghan was reportedly furious. She had built up this entire trip in her mind as a massive turning point, a glorious public relations victory that would silence their critics in America and jumpstart her failing commercial projects. She thought the presence of the grandchildren Archie and Lilibet would act as the ultimate bargaining chip to break the king's resolve. She assumed that by presenting these two young children who have been kept largely isolated from their British heritage, the king would soften up, offer a public reconciliation, and give them the royal stamp of approval they so desperately need to stay relevant. Instead, she was met with cold, formal, highly managed protocol. King Charles made it abundantly clear that while he loves his grandchildren, he will never allow family emotions to compromise the long-term stability and dignity of the British monarchy. The king proved that keeping a private, distant personal relationship alive is entirely separate from handing back royal privileges to people who have spent years attacking the crown. Meghan reportedly left Highgrove with the children shortly after heading straight back to their Montecito estate, while Harry was left behind to finish his Invictus Games commitments in Birmingham, looking like the absolute defeat was weighing heavily on his shoulders. The online reaction to the trip was swift and unforgiving. The public saw right through the Sussexes' desperate ploy. Critics and commentators alike pointed out that this brief 47-minute encounter said far more through its silence than any official statement ever could. The lack of photos, the lack of media briefings, and the total absence of any public warmth proved that the palace had successfully taken total control of the narrative. The Sussexes came to Britain looking for leverage, but they left completely empty-handed, exposed as powerless outsiders who no longer have any influence behind palace walls. Their entire strategy of using the children as a tool to rebuild their brand has completely backfired. People online started pointing out the sheer hypocrisy of demanding royal titles for Archie and Lilibet from an institution they previously claimed to loathe and label as racist. It showed the world that Meghan doesn't dislike the monarchy, she just dislikes the fact that she couldn't rule it or profit off it on her own terms. But King Charles, with the quiet support of Queen Camilla and Prince William, firmly shut that door. The Highgrove meeting was not the start of any grand royal comeback for Harry and Meghan. It was a firm, final reminder that this chapter of their lives is firmly, permanently closed. They have no major Hollywood projects on the horizon, no massive money earners lined up, and their popularity ratings on both sides of the Atlantic are sitting at record lows. They are stuck in Montecito, wallowing in an endless cycle of their own making, while the royal family moves forward into the future, stronger, more respected, and completely unified without them. The Sussex dream of finding a comfortable, lucrative role as half-in, half-out royals is officially dead and buried. If you think King Charles handled this situation like an absolute master strategist by setting firm boundaries and shutting down their PR tricks, make sure you show your support right now. Hit that like button, subscribe to Royal Insider Network, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another breakdown. What do you think Harry and Meghan's next desperate move is going to be? Do you think they will stay quiet, or will they try to launch another tearful tell-all interview? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. I read through them all. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.
Breaking right now, the British royal family mired in one of its biggest crises in history. But if you thought the Prince Andrew scandal was the end of the changes that are coming under King William V, let me tell you, you are wrong.
This is without a single shadow of a doubt some of the most despicable emotional blackmail surrounding the 30th anniversary of Princess Diana's death that I have ever witnessed. I mean, just look at the sheer mind-boggling audacity of what is unfolding right before our eyes. The charity Prince Harry co-founded in his late mother's name is actively suing him in the English High Court. Her sacred final resting place at Althorpe was transformed into a cheap staged Instagram photo opportunity. And her solemn anniversary is being ruthlessly hijacked for red carpet optics and commercial clout over in California. It is ghoulish. That is honestly the only word left in the English language that can properly explain Prince Harry and Meghan Markle sharing these so-called private family photos to bolster their failing public image. And through every single second of this embarrassing circus, Prince William hasn't had to say a single word. He hasn't needed to. Because while Harry is systematically losing every single thing tied to Diana's name, William inherits her entire legacy simply by being the son who understood what it was never supposed to be about. Welcome back to Royal Insider Network, by the way. If you are as utterly appalled, or frankly, as completely exhausted by this endless Meghan and Harry circus, as I am, do me a quick favour right now. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and drop a like on this video. We bring you the deep dive breakdowns and the raw royal truths that Montecito desperately tries to sweep under the rug every single week. So, join the network, drop a comment with your thoughts, and let us get right into the actual reality behind palace walls. Because today, we are stripping away the public relations spin and looking at the cold, hard facts of Prince Harry's latest legal and public relations nightmare. Centrebelle, which means forget-me-not in the local language of Lesotho, was built back in 2006 as a loving personal tribute to Princess Diana. Harry co-founded it with Prince Seeiso to help vulnerable children living with HIV and poverty in southern Africa. For nearly 2 decades, it was the one thing nobody could ever question about Harry. It was the one project that felt genuine, the one initiative that actually carried Diana's compassionate spirit, without needing a multi-million-dollar Netflix camera crew to prove it. But following an increasingly bitter leadership battle, Harry quit his role as patron in 2025. And now, in 2026, the High Court claim is officially active, putting Harry in a legal position he never ever saw coming. To truly understand how Prince Harry ended up getting sued by his own mother's charity, you have to look at the formidable woman sitting across from him at the legal table. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have officially met their match in Dr. Sophie Chandauka. Now let us be completely clear about who this woman is, because she is not someone who can be easily intimidated by a royal title. Dr. Sophie Chandauka is the chair of the board at Centrebelle. She is a corporate lawyer by training, a former top executive at major institutions like JP Morgan and Meta, and a recipient of the Member of the Order of the British Empire honour. She is a self-made woman who grew up with nothing and built a stellar world-class career through pure talent, intellect, and relentless hard work. She had already beaten Harry once by reporting the charity to the Charity Commission before this High Court lawsuit even existed. In her explosive Sky News interview, Dr. Sophie described a deeply troubling culture of silence inside Centrebelle prior to her intervention. She revealed that board members were literally sitting around the table terrified to challenge a prince. She used the specific word belligerence to describe Harry's behaviour during board meetings. Think about that for a second. A board of accomplished professionals, trying to help impoverished children, afraid to speak up because of the petulant behaviour of an overly entitled prince. Dr. Sophie reported the environment for bullying, harassment, and misogynoir, a term used when a black woman is targeted and bullied specifically because of her race and gender. And then came the now infamous charity polo fundraiser in Miami, which proved to be the absolute tipping point for the charity's leadership. According to on-the-record statements, Harry decided to bring a commercial Netflix camera crew to the fundraiser. Nobody on the board was informed in advance. Nobody signed up to be featured in a commercial Hollywood docuseries. Because of this sudden commercial element, the original venue pulled out, costs exploded overnight, and the charity had to scramble to find a replacement location. On the day of the event, Meghan Markle showed up, entirely unannounced, bringing along her famous friend Serena Williams. The entire charity event was thrown into total chaos. And then came the moment that went viral around the globe, the trophy presentation on stage. Footage showed Meghan actively ordering Dr. Sophie to move away from Harry during the official photo. Meghan literally motioned for the chair of the charity to step aside so that Meghan could stand right next to her husband and hold the trophy for the cameras. After global media tore that awkward moment apart, Harry's PR team actually had the nerve to ask Dr. Sophie to issue a public statement defending Meghan from negative publicity. Dr. Sophie's response was swift, blunt, and devastating. She flatly refused, stating that Centrebelle would never set a precedent where it becomes an extension of the Sussex PR machine. Even more damning, Dr. Sophie publicly stated that the number one risk facing the entire children's charity was the sheer toxicity of its lead patron's brand. Not funding, not international politics, but the toxic public image of Prince Harry himself. Think about the tragedy of that statement. A children's HIV charity built in a dead princess's name, and the woman running it had to declare that the biggest threat to those vulnerable children was the man who co-founded it. And there is one more detail from investigative biographer Tom Bower that makes this whole situation even more sinister. Bower reported in his book Betrayal that Harry allegedly asked certain Centrebelle donors to redirect their financial contributions away from Centrebelle and into Archewell. Instead, his own private foundation in California. If that allegation is proven true in court, Harry was not just damaging the charity's reputation. He was actively draining its financial pipeline to fuel his own commercial machine. Dr. Sophie was bullied online to the point of needing medical attention and shutting down her social media accounts. But she did not back down. A senior barrister reviewing the case on television took one look at her credentials and offered a 6-word warning that should terrify Montecito. I think he may have met his match. Dr. Sophie reported him to the Charity Commission. But what makes this lawsuit an absolute nightmare for Harry is the brutal reality of English defamation law, where he has nowhere left to hide. Now here is what makes this High Court case fundamentally different from every single legal battle Harry has ever fought in his life. In every courtroom he has walked into before, whether suing the Daily Mail, the Mirror, the Sun, or the Home Office, Harry was the claimant. He picked the timing. He picked the battlefield. He generated the headlines. And whenever things turned sour, he could simply settle or walk away. Not this time. In this case, Prince Harry is the defendant. He did not choose this fight, he cannot control the timeline, and he has zero power to pull the plug. Dr. Sophie Chandelka holds the steering wheel now. And in England, the rules of defamation law are absolutely brutal. Unlike in the United States, where the First Amendment protects free speech, and the person bringing the lawsuit has to prove you knowingly, lied English law runs in the exact opposite direction. The moment Dr. Sophie filed that claim, whatever damaging statements Harry made about her are legally presumed to be false from day one. The entire burden of proof rests entirely on Harry's shoulders. He has to stand up in a court of law and prove on the balance of probabilities that his accusations were factually true. The law sides against him before a single witness even takes the stand. If the lawsuit itself is a massive problem, what comes next in the legal process is an absolute living nightmare for Harry and Meghan. In English civil litigation, there is a mandatory process called disclosure. Senior criminal defence barristers have described this process using one very specific word: nuclear. Disclosure requires both sides to hand over every single relevant document, every private email, every computer file, and every single text message sent to anyone regarding the subject matter of the case. Think about what that actually means for the Duke of Sussex. The only thing legally protected from disclosure is communication between Harry and his formal legal team, a concept known as legal professional privilege. Everything else is fair game. Every single WhatsApp message between Harry and his mentor, Mark Dyer, about centre bail must be handed over. Every single text message between Harry and Meghan discussing Dr. Sophie Chandelka, dating back years to the very beginning of the tension, must be placed into a public court bundle. If Harry texted Meghan venting about Dr. Sophie calling her names, mocking her leadership, or strategizing how to leak negative stories about her, to friendly journalists, those messages are disclosable by law, every single word. A senior barrister put it brilliantly when he said the birds are finally coming home to roost. For 6 long years, Harry used the threat of legal disclosure to force British newspapers to hand over internal emails and private documents. Now that exact same judicial weapon is pointed straight at his own smartphone. And what if Harry decides to simply delete those messages and claim it is his normal privacy policy, a King's Counsel, confirmed on camera, that intentionally deleting evidence, subject to disclosure, is illegal under English law? The legal world is taking what might be hiding in those private WhatsApp chats extraordinarily seriously. And then there is the massive question that nobody in Montecito wants to answer, who is paying for this multi-year High Court litigation. Dr. Sophie has confirmed on the record that the legal costs are not being paid by centre bail. No charity donations are being touched. That means someone with extremely deep pockets has stepped up to anonymously fund a massive legal assault against Prince Harry. One leading theory raised by legal experts is that a major Fleet Street newspaper group might be quietly backing the lawsuit behind the scenes. A newspaper group that spent years on the receiving end of Harry's aggressive lawsuits might now be funding a proxy to get their ultimate revenge. If that theory is true, then every legal war Harry waged against the press produced the one outcome he never anticipated: a media industry with a massive grudge, an endless legal budget, and now a perfect way inside his private life. With preliminary hearings underway and a full public trial expected by late 2027. Harry is facing 18 straight months of published pleadings, mandatory disclosure, and catastrophic headlines. While this legal storm threatens to drain his remaining bank accounts and expose his private texts, an even more grotesque scandal erupted over how the Sussexes treated Diana's final resting place. While the legal storm around Centre Bell was building to a crescendo, something happened in July that brought the Diana question into an entirely different, deeply disturbing arena. During a private visit to the United Kingdom, the Sussexes stayed at Althorpe, the ancestral Spencer family estate, where Princess Diana is buried. Shortly after, Meghan posted a photograph on Instagram showing Prince Harry, young Archie, and little Lilibet walking down a tree-lined, grassy path holding bouquets of flowers. Within hours, predictably, People magazine, briefed directly by the Sussex PR team, confirmed that the photo was indeed taken on the private grounds of Althorp. The destination in that photograph was blatantly obvious to anyone with eyes. They were walking toward the secluded island grave of Princess Diana. The global backlash against that post was immediate, fierce, and utterly unsparing. The single word that kept appearing from royal commentators, journalists, and thousands of ordinary people online was ghoulish. To truly understand why that photo sparked such intense outrage, you have to remember what Charles Spencer, Diana's own brother, wrote after her tragic death in 1997. He wrote that her grave's remote island location on the Oval Lake at Althorp was chosen deliberately as a sacred buffer against what he explicitly termed the insane and ghoulish obsession of the media. And yet nearly 30 years later, his own nephew's wife posted a staged photograph walking toward that sacred burial site on a commercial Instagram page. Senior royal commentators used Charles Spencer's exact words to condemn the couple, calling Harry and Meghan insane, ghoulish, and completely devoid of respect for Diana's final resting place. The sheer hypocrisy of it all is staggering. Here is a couple that endlessly preaches to the world about their desperate need for absolute privacy, yet they willingly publish the most intimate moments of their children's lives at a private gravesite just to generate cheap public sympathy and keep their names attached to Diana's memory. To make matters infinitely worse, look at the timing of when that Althorp photo was dropped onto social media. Meghan posted those pictures the exact day after Prince William and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, released an official birthday portrait of Prince George to mark his 13th birthday milestone. The Sussexes dropped photos of Archie sitting in a cockpit and walking at Althorp on that exact same afternoon, in what appeared to be a desperate, calculated attempt to hijack the headlines away from the future King of England. And this is not an isolated incident. This is a clear, undeniable pattern of behaviour. Royal watchers have pointed out how Meghan repeatedly copies Diana's iconic style, from wearing the exact same cut of swimwear Diana wore in the 90s to filming herself riding through the streets of Paris with her feet up in the back seat of a car near the very location where Diana lost her life, all while promoting her commercial wine brand on social media. It is bizarre, it is calculated, and as multiple commentators have pointed out, it borders on psycho-stalker behaviour. According to insider reports, the graveside photo was not even the first time a disturbing PR idea regarding Althorp was floated by Montecito. Sources claim that Meghan previously proposed a joint family photo op at Diana's grave, featuring William, Catherine, and their 3 children, standing alongside Harry, Meghan, and theirs. 7 of Diana's descendants arranged neatly at the burial site for a global photo call. Prince William's reported response to that appalling proposal was a single definitive word: grotesque. Prince William visits his mother's grave in absolute total silence. He brings no camera crews, he issues no press releases, and he briefs no American magazines. He takes his wife and his children to pay their respects as a private family, and the public never hears a single word about it. That is what genuine, authentic grief looks like. William guards his mother's grave with absolute silence, but the battle for Diana's legacy is about to reach a fever pitch at the upcoming 30-year anniversary gala. There is currently only one single royal patronage left on this earth that both Prince William and Prince Harry still share: the Diana Award, a charity established to celebrate young leaders carrying forward their mother's legacy. As we approach 2027, a massive 30th anniversary gala is being planned to mark 3 decades since Diana's tragic passing. It is set to be a glittering black tie event in London, featuring a full programme of international ceremonies. But the strategy behind how this event is being organised reveals everything you need to know about the ongoing PR war. According to detailed media reports, the entire schedule for the Diana Award Gala is being masterminded around Prince Harry's planned trip to the United Kingdom for the Invictus Games in Birmingham. The organisers are deliberately tailoring the timeline to make it convenient for Harry to attend in person. Sources close to the Sussexes confirmed that Harry desperately wants Meghan to stand beside him at this gala, claiming he wants her to be closer to his mother's legacy. Let us translate what that really means into plain English. Meghan Markle desperately needs to walk that red carpet. She needs to be photographed under the banner of Princess Diana, surrounded by high society donors and royal glamour, so she can take those photographs back to Hollywood and prove to Netflix, Spotify, and corporate sponsors that the Sussex brand still carries official royal weight. It is a calculated attempt to use a dead mother's memory as a commercial lifeline for a failing celebrity empire. However, Prince William's position regarding this gala is simple, ironclad, and entirely immovable. William has established an impenetrable boundary. Nothing official connected to Princess Diana will ever involve Meghan Markle, period. The real danger for the British monarchy is not just one black tie gala. The real danger is what that one gala represents. Imagine the PR outcome if Prince William and Prince Harry were photographed standing side by side under Diana's name. By the very next morning, the Montecito spin machine would write the narrative across the global media. Harry is back. Harry is rehabilitated. Harry is still an essential piece of the royal family. Overnight, every corporate entity that paid millions to the Sussexes to attack the crown would see their investment revalued. Prince William sees right through that game. He has been the collateral damage of Harry and Meghan's media attacks for 6 long years, and he refuses to be manipulated into giving them a public relations lifeline. In recent years, the estranged brothers have carried out appearances for the Diana Award entirely separately. William attending events in person, while Harry appears hours later via a brief video link from California. But for the 30th anniversary gala, the organisers want both brothers in the same room. Prince William's message to the charity and to the public is crystal clear. He does not need a glittering red carpet gala to honour his late mother. He honours her every single day in how he lives his life, how he raises his children, and how he serves the nation with quiet dignity. If the organisers try to force a joint appearance to generate media hype, William is fully prepared to boycott the physical event or participate virtually. He will not allow himself or his mother's name to be used as a prop in Meghan Markle's commercial comeback. The Diana Award may be the last remaining door open between the two brothers, but William is ready to shut it permanently. And when you step back and look at the full picture, the contrast between the two brothers reveals a brutal, undeniable truth. So step back for a moment and look at the full, undeniable picture of where things stand today. One brother co-founded a children's charity in his mother's name. That charity is now actively suing him in the High Court for defamation and brand toxicity. One brother's wife posted a staged promotional photo from his mother's private burial ground on Instagram to steal headlines from the future king. One brother's PR team asked a children's HIV charity to act as a defensive shield for his wife. And that same brother is now facing 18 straight months of brutal court hearings, mandatory disclosure of his private WhatsApp messages, and potential financial ruin. And what is funding Harry's multi-million-dollar lifestyle and legal defense over in California? A lifestyle jam brand with terrible reviews, a downgraded Netflix contract, and a commercial brand that the public has utterly rejected. Meanwhile, the next Invictus Games in Birmingham are surrounded by reports of corporate sponsors pulling out while local taxpayers question the massive costs. Now look at the other brother. Prince William has never had a charity sue him. He has never faced a regulator's complaint, never had to explain a tasteless graveside photo to a judge, never had a fan base he needed to restrain from cyberbullying charity executives, and never given a single tearful television interview about his mother that he later had to defend in court. Same mother, same surname, same childhood, same profound grief, 2 entirely radically different outcomes. Years ago, during an early royal engagement, a senior figure gave Meghan Markle a piece of advice after a charity visit, where the actual cause was completely overshadowed by Meghan, writing inspirational messages on bananas for vulnerable women. That senior figure offered 6 simple words of wisdom. The focus is the charity. It is never about you. Princess Diana understood that fundamental rule instinctively. It is precisely why her humanitarian work resonated across the globe. She possessed the most photographed face on planet Earth, yet she constantly pointed the lens away from herself and toward the suffering of others. When she shook hands with an AIDS patient in the 1980s or walked through an active minefield in Angola, it was never about her personal branding. She made herself the smallest thing in the room and the cause the biggest. Her younger son put her name on a charity for children, and that charity is now suing him because his ego became larger than the cause. Her elder son carries her same name, her same face, and her same legacy, and he has never once needed to explain his conduct to a judge. Prince Harry once famously claimed on global television that his father and his brother were trapped inside the monarchy while he alone had escaped to freedom. 6 years later, look at where that so-called freedom has led him. Harry is a defendant in an English courtroom sued in his mother's name, legally presumed wrong, until he proves otherwise with his private messages exposed to the world. The woman he tried to push out of a charity board now controls his legal fate. And the other son. The one Harry claimed was trapped, carries his mother's legacy forward with quiet strength, totally unbothered by the Montecito drama. Because Prince William learned the lesson long ago. It was never about you. One brother lost everything trying to monetize Diana's name. The other brother never needed to carry the name. He just lived it. If you think Prince William and King Charles are entirely right to maintain this iron wall against the Sussexes, show your support right now. Hit that like button, subscribe to Royal Insider Network, and ring that notification bell so you never miss another deep dive breakdown. What do you think Harry's next move will be when his private messages are exposed in court? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. I read through every single one. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the very next video.
How can you get your age so wrong?
Oh no, what a shame. What a shame. Here I was preparing a special episode of the show to mark Meghan Markle's 45th birthday. I've got Link Lauren, one of Meghan Markle's biggest supporters in the United States of America, and we were just going to celebrate how this lady has turned 45. And Link, it's just such bad news because all of a sudden, this birthday, this 45th birthday, has turned into an absolute disaster for Meghan Markle.
It is that time of the year. Once again, folks, when the Montecito public relations machine wheels out the birthday cake, blows out the candles, and expects the entire world to stand up and applaud. Another year, another round of carefully staged social media posts, and another chance for Meghan Markle to remind us all just how deeply adored she believes she is. 45 candles went on that cake this August. That is the official number. That is the number stamped across every magazine cover, printed in every newspaper headline from London to Los Angeles, and repeated endlessly by her dutiful cheerleaders online. But as predictable as clockwork, within 4 hours of that official announcement, dropping, the comment sections beneath every single royal channel on the internet turned into an absolute battleground. Thousands of viewers doing what they do every single August, counting backwards, cross-referencing old magazine articles, and coming up with a completely different answer. And honestly, can you blame people for being suspicious? When a couple builds their entire public identity on claiming to be the ultimate arbiters of truth and authenticity, while simultaneously leaving behind a trail of bizarre inconsistencies, people are going to ask questions. But as I sat there scrolling through those thousands of comments this year, I noticed something that almost everyone seems to miss. Everyone is asking the wrong people.
Meghan was born, and she was born as a C-section, so she was put in my arm. I was the first person to hold her.
Royal watchers drag out Thomas Markle's old interviews. They dig up Samantha Markle's books. They quote high school yearbooks, and they pull out that famous 1997 17 magazine article like a dusty Christmas decoration from the attic. But in 8 long years of relentless media coverage, books, documentaries, court filings, and a multi-million-dollar Netflix series, nobody has ever put the question to the one human being on this earth who does not need a single piece of paper to answer it. Where is Doria Ragland in all of this? Doria was not waiting down the corridor. She was not sitting by a telephone across town. She was the one giving birth in the delivery room on the 4th of August, 1981, at West Park Hospital. She is the only clean witness in this entire saga, yet she is the one person who has never been asked to count out loud. By the way, welcome back to Royal Insider Network. If you are as fascinated, or frankly as completely exhausted by this endless Meghan and Harry circus as I am,
there's nothing original here.
I hope you're having the best birthday you've ever had. Thank you for everything.
Which is really such a fake.
do me a huge favor right now. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and drop a like on this video. We bring you the deep dive breakdowns and the raw royal truths that Montecito desperately tries to sweep under the rug every single week. So join the network, leave a comment with your thoughts, and let us get right into the actual reality behind this bizarre birth date mystery. Because when you line up what her own family has put in writing, you find something genuinely mind-boggling. Now, let us be completely clear about one thing, right off the bat. We are not here to indulge in wild, unhinged internet speculation or make baseless claims. We are going to look strictly at what Meghan Markle, her family, and her own legal team have put down in writing on the record in public documents and court filings. Because when you sit down and place their own official statements side by side, you quickly realize that the numbers in this family simply do not add up.
I remember when she was born, big new addition to the family, and we just have a very young sister here.
There are literally more conflicting numbers in this family narrative than there are people in the family itself. Let us start with her half-sister, Samantha Markle. Samantha wrote a whole book specifically designed in her own words to set the record straight about her famous younger sister. She describes Meghan's arrival into the world with great fanfare, talking about the family lineage and the exact day her little sister came home. And then, in black and white, Samantha gives a date, August the 31st, 1981. Now the birth year matches the official narrative, 1981. Nobody is denying that. But the actual day, August 31st, that is 27 days off from the 4th of August birthday that the entire world sang for this month. Think about that for a second.
Thomas Jr. was 14 when Meghan came into the world. Were you disappointed?
No, I just made a little mark on my board and said, oh, there's another lie, click.
The sister who published a whole book to correct the record wrote down a date that is nearly a full month off. Then we move from published books to actual sworn legal filings. In Meghan Markle's own legal complaint filed in court against her sister, her lawyers describe a 17-year age gap between the two sisters. 17 years. That is the official number thrown around every single time her legal team wants to dismiss Samantha's commentary and shut down the discussion. But if you actually do the basic arithmetic, Samantha was born in November 1964. Count it out on your fingers. The gap from November 1964 to August 1981 is 16 years and 8 months, not 17 years. Now you might say, well, 16 years and 8 months is close enough. She just rounded up. But in a formal legal document filed in a court of law regarding your own sibling, rounding up numbers is at best incredibly sloppy and at worst factually inaccurate. It gets even more bizarre when you look at Meghan's own private communications that were submitted as evidence in the English High Court.
It was absolutely clear that this young woman was strong in her beliefs. It didn't matter if she was 11 years old. She believed in women. She believed in her own power, and she wasn't afraid to reach out and say, I want my power. I want my right.
In a private email sent to her communications secretary in 2018, an email specifically written to supply background information for royal biographers, Meghan describes her father's other two children as being 15 and 17 years old when her parents separated. Except Samantha was born in 1964, and her brother Thomas Jr. was born in 1966. Samantha is the older of the two siblings, yet in Meghan's own written summary, the elder sister is listed as the younger number. She got her own siblings' age order completely backward in a written briefing. Even the official court fact-checkers who reviewed these documents had to acknowledge the discrepancy, writing in print that the ages supplied were, quote, clearly slightly confused. And then, of course, we have the famous 1997 issue of 17 magazine. This is the piece of evidence that internet investigators drag out every single summer. In March of 1997, 17 magazine published a profile featuring young actors and students from Los Angeles. In that printed article, Meghan Markle is explicitly listed as being 21 years old at the time of publication. Do the basic math on that. If an individual is 21 years old in March of 1997, that places her birth year around 1976, not 1981. So look at what we have accumulated here on paper. A sister's book that names the wrong day of the month. A formal court filing that rounds an age gap in the wrong direction. A private email where the most media-trained woman alive gets her own sibling's birth order backward, and a national magazine article from 1997 stating she was 21 years old. Every single person who has tried to document this story from memory or arithmetic has produced a different number. And if you actually take that 1976 birth year theory seriously for just 2 minutes, a massive mind-bending timeline paradox immediately erupts. To truly understand why this birth date debate refuses to die, no matter how many official birth certificates or state indexes are held up by her defenders, you have to look at what happens when you lay the 1976 theory right next to the official family history. Because this is the part that almost nobody arguing about this on social media actually stops to calculate. The theory that has been running rampant under every video for 8 years claims Meghan was not born in 1981 at all, but rather in 1976 or 1977. So let us take that claim completely seriously for a moment and look at the actual timeline of her parents, Thomas Markle and Doria Ragland. The official undisputed timeline, written by Meghan herself in her own published essays, states that her parents met in the late 1970s. Thomas Markle was a successful Emmy Award-winning lighting director on a major television soap opera. Doria Ragland was a 22-year-old temporary worker at the same Hollywood studio. By all accounts, including Meghan's own written words, her parents had a whirlwind romance lasting roughly 6 months before deciding to get married. We can date that wedding to the exact day, December the 23rd, 1979. They were married in a small bohemian ceremony at a temple on Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles, surrounded by friends and a monk in orange robes. Doria was 23 years old. Thomas was 35. Doria's own family members confirmed to international newspapers years later that nobody in her family had even heard Thomas Markle's name until the wedding invitations physically landed on their doormat in late 1979. Now look at how tidy the official narrative is when you put the two official dates together. They meet in mid-1979. They get married in December 1979, and their only daughter Meghan arrives on August 4th, 1981. That is 19 months after the wedding ceremony. It is clean, it makes complete sense, and it raises zero eyebrows anywhere in the world. Now, place the alternate theory right next to it. The theory that thousands of people online firmly believe, pointing to the magazine archives and high school yearbooks. If Meghan Markle was actually born in 1976 or 1977, she would have arrived 2 to 3 full years before her parents ever met at that Hollywood studio. Not 2 years before the wedding, 2 to 3 years before Thomas Markle and Doria Ragland were even introduced before the lighting department and the studio temps were even on the same call sheet. Think about the sheer impossibility of that. That is not a rounding error. That is not a minor slip of the tongue. That is a ghost at the wedding. If that alternate timeline were true, it would mean that the sweet Hollywood romance story, the whirlwind studio meeting, the Sunset Boulevard wedding, the daughter arriving 19 months later was completely fabricated from page 1. It would mean her parents were rewriting history before the child even reached kindergarten. Now am I standing here telling you that the official birth certificate is fake? No. The California State Index exists. It is a public record and anyone can look it up. But a state index is simply a form filled out by adults at a specific moment in time. What I'm pointing out to you is that the adults surrounding this child have between them supplied conflicting dates, wrong months, rounded gaps, and inverted sibling ages that do not survive 90 seconds with a basic calculator. When every single written document provided by the family contains errors, people naturally look for a clean, undisputed witness to settle the debate. And that brings us right back to the one woman who was standing quietly in that delivery room, possessing the absolute truth, yet refusing to speak a single word. When you cut through all the noise, the internet speculation, the family feuds, and the legal filings, there is only one person on planet Earth whose testimony matters on this subject. Doria Ragland was 24 years old on August the 4th, 1981. She turned 25 just 29 days later on September 2nd. That birth date is a matter of public record. September 2nd, 1956, in Cleveland, Ohio. A 24-year-old woman giving birth to her very first child in a hospital out in the San Fernando Valley. Ask any mother watching this right now, anywhere in the world. How old were you when your first child was born? A mother does not need to pause. She does not reach for her phone. She does not look up a state index or check a calendar. In under 4 seconds, any mother on earth can tell you her exact age, the hour of the day, the weather outside, what shirt her husband was wearing, and what the midwife said to her in the delivery room. That moment is burned into a mother's memory with absolute unbreakable permanence. For 8 long years, Doria Ragland has watched her daughter become the most fiercely debated, relentlessly criticized woman on the planet. She has watched international newspapers publish columns questioning her daughter's age, her background, her credentials, and her integrity. And through all of those 8 years, Doria Ragland has maintained a wall of complete, impenetrable silence. Now you might say, well, Doria is just a private person who wants nothing to do with the media spotlight. But we know for a fact that is not true. In December of 2022, Doria Ragland sat down in front of high-definition cameras for the global Netflix docuseries Harry and Meghan. She sat there with professional lighting, makeup, and a massive production crew. And do you know what the very first sentence out of Doria's mouth was in that documentary? She looked right into the camera and said that the last 5 years had been challenging, and she was finally ready to have her voice heard. She was ready to have her voice heard. She sat there and spoke at length about the initial phone call where Meghan whispered that she was dating Prince Harry. She spoke about race. She spoke about media harassment. She spoke about her personal regrets, and she spoke about feeling unsafe in Los Angeles. She had a global platform, an audience of tens of millions, and total freedom to tell her side of the story. And yet, in hours of footage, through all the emotional interviews and glossy production, not a single interviewer turned to Doria Ragland and asked her one basic question. Doria, what year was your daughter born? What time of day was it? What did the hospital wristband say? Nobody asked. Not a single person in that multi-million-dollar production thought to ask the mother to confirm the date that has fueled 8 years of internet commentary. Doesn't that strike you as extraordinarily bizarre? Here's a woman who holds the absolute key to ending a global debate in 4 simple words. She is not selling a tell-all book like Thomas Markle. She is not suing her family like Samantha Markle. She is not a media commentator building a YouTube channel. She is the mother. She is the cleanest, most authoritative witness in this entire affair. Yet she sits there in silence, allowing the mystery to linger year after year. And this strange pattern of foggy, highly dramatic birth narratives is not isolated to Meghan's childhood. Because when you look at how Harry and Meghan describe the birth of their own children, years later you see the exact same bizarre theatrical storytelling at play. To see just how deeply embedded this pattern of theatrical, highly questionable storytelling is inside the Sussex household, you only have to look at the account Prince Harry gave of the birth of their son Archie in his 2023 memoir, Spare. Because when you analyze his written description of that day, you realize that exaggeration and narrative embellishment seem to be the primary language of Montecito. In Spare, Harry paints a lavish, highly cinematic picture of Archie's birth at the Portland Hospital in central London. He describes bringing electric battery-operated candles into the delivery room to set a serene mood. He describes blasting Sanskrit chanting from portable speakers. He claims he placed a framed photograph of his late mother, Princess Diana, on a side table right next to the bed. He writes that Meghan was given not 1, but 2 epidurals during the labor. And then comes the absolute kicker. Harry explicitly writes that roughly 2 hours after giving birth, Meghan was cleaned up. Archie was wrapped in blankets and they were in the back of a van driving down the motorway back to Frogmore Cottage in Windsor. 2 hours. Read that again and process what he is actually claiming in a published book. He is claiming that a 37-year-old first-time mother, classified medically as a geriatric pregnancy, received 2 separate epidurals during a difficult labor and was discharged from a central London hospital 2 hours later. Anyone who has ever given birth or worked in a maternity ward or simply possessed a basic grain of medical common sense took one look at that story and burst out laughing. An epidural involves injecting powerful anesthesia directly into the spinal space, rendering the patient's lower body completely numb. It takes hours for a single epidural to wear off to the point where a patient can safely stand up, walk, and pass a basic neurological assessment. Medical staff do not simply slap a bandage on a woman who has had 2 epidurals, wrap a newborn in a blanket and roll them out the back door 75 minutes later. Furthermore, the physical drive from the Portland Hospital in central London to Frogmore Cottage in Windsor takes nearly an hour on a good day through heavy London traffic. If they were back in bed at Frogmore Cottage 2 hours after delivery, that means Meghan was walking out of the hospital doors roughly 60 minutes after giving birth. The medical liability alone for the Portland Hospital would be astronomical. No hospital on planet Earth would allow a high-profile patient to leave under those conditions. When readers called out the sheer impossibility of this medical miracle online, defenders scrambled to claim Harry was just using creative writing or that his memory was foggy. But think about what that means. This is a man who was paid a $20 million advance to write his definitive life story. He had professional ghostwriters, fact-checkers, and legal teams reviewing every word. Yet he published a birth narrative that crumbles under 30 seconds of medical scrutiny. Do you see the pattern here? Whether it is the birth of Meghan in 1981 with conflicting dates, wrong age gaps and magazine discrepancies, or the birth of Archie in 1919 with Sanskrit, chanting plastic candles and instant 2-hour discharges, the Sussexes simply cannot deliver a straightforward, unembellished fact. Everything must be elevated into a Hollywood production. Everything must sound like a fairy tale, even when the details violate basic human biology and legal documents. They build these elaborate narratives, because they desperately want to control how the world perceives them. And as we turn to Meghan's own words from years before she ever met Prince Harry, we find the exact moment she revealed her true motive to the world. So, where does all of this leave us? The day after another birthday circus looking at 8 years of mathematical confusion, silent mothers, and theatrical medical tales, it leaves us with one final fascinating piece of evidence, a statement made by Meghan Markle herself, long before she ever set foot inside Buckingham Palace or met Prince Harry. Back in 2015, Meghan was an actress working on the television legal drama Suits. She sat down for an interview with a fashion magazine to promote the show. The interviewer asked her a standard question about her age and her career in Hollywood. And Meghan gave an answer that almost nobody ever quotes in full, but it tells you everything you need to know about her mindset. She said, and I'm quoting her exact words on the record, "I think as women actors, the industry can assume they have a shelf life. I'm always told, don't say your age. I'm 33 and I'm really comfortable with that. If anyone has a problem, then it's their problem, not mine." Read those words very carefully. There are two distinct messages inside that single paragraph. In the very first sentence, she explicitly reveals the golden rule of Hollywood in the entertainment industry. An actress is always told to hide her age because women are viewed as having a strict shelf life. She confirms in her own words that she was actively coached by agents, directors, and industry insiders to be careful, cautious, and deceptive with her birth year. And then, 4 words later, she hands over a number 33 and claims she is completely comfortable with it. But you cannot stand in front of a national magazine, explain the exact commercial motive for why an actress in your business hides her birth date, and then expect the public not to notice that you just handed them the exact reason why that number might be flexible. She didn't just give a number that day, she handed the world the exact motive on a silver platter. She'd been working in Hollywood since she was a teenager, and she explicitly confirmed that lying about your age is standard operating procedure for survival in that industry. When you combine that 2015 admission with the 1997 17 magazine article listing her as 21, the Samantha Markle book listing, August 31st, the legal filings rounding age gaps, the emails swapping sibling order, and Doria Ragland's total refusal to state the year out loud, the picture becomes glaringly obvious. The public does not question Meghan Markle's age out of random malice or internet cruelty. The public questions it because Meghan Markle and her family have supplied a dozen different versions of the truth, while her mother sits silently in the background, refusing to clear it up. A single 4-word statement from Doria Ragland, she was born in '81, would end this entire global debate instantly. But Doria stays silent. Montecito keeps spinning, and the public continues to do the math. One woman, one simple question, one sentence could settle this forever. Doria Ragland lives right there in California. She sat in front of Netflix camera crews claiming she was ready to be heard, so someone should go and ask her. We have been asking the wrong parent for 8 long years, and it is time to put the question to the only person who actually knows the truth. Drop your verdict in the comments down below. Do you think Doria's silence is just a mother protecting her daughter's privacy? Or do you think there is a genuine reason why nobody has ever put her in front of that question? I read through every single comment, and I want to know your take on this endless mystery. Hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who want the real truth behind the royal spin. And do not forget to subscribe to Royal Insider Network so you never miss another deep dive breakdown. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the very next video.
It is Meghan Markle's birthday today, and the name of the game apparently is cosplay, as Meghan is once again cosplaying her mother-in-law, Princess Diana. And of course, this has been talked about for years now.
It is Meghan Markle's birthday once again, folks. And apparently the name of the game in Montecito is full-blown unhinged cosplay. I mean, just look at the sheer mind-boggling desperation of this latest social media stunt. Jumping into a swimming pool in a black swimsuit surrounded by floating balloons, pretending to be some bubbly 20-something influencer while celebrating another year in California. But if you look past the fake smiles and the staged birthday cheer, what are we actually looking at here? It is yet another blatant, shameless attempt to copy her late mother-in-law, Princess Diana. From the exact cut of the swimwear to the poses and the mood, Meghan Markle seems to have an utter, total inability to exist as her own person. It is honestly embarrassing. And you have to ask yourself, why now?
Paltrow, Meghan Markle seems to lack one very key thing in the public's eye, and that is a defined identity. From her fashion to her personality to her interests, everything about Meghan seems to be a copy.
Why drop this staged poolside photo right now? Well, because the Montecito spin machine is in total crisis mode after what went down back in Britain. You see, this frantic urge to recreate Princess Diana on social media is the direct, desperate aftermath of that humiliating 47-minute meeting at Highgrove House. King Charles set an ironclad boundary. He gave them 47 minutes, allowed 0 photographs, barred any commercial filming, and effectively locked the royal gates right in their faces. No grand reunion, no royal backdrop for Netflix, and no official endorsement for their commercial empire. So when you get frozen out by the British monarchy in 47 swift minutes, what do you do when your brand is flatlining?
And that's the thing. Meghan doesn't understand what it means to actually be royalty. She thinks it's like being an influencer and a celebrity, and it's just not.
You run right back to California and pull out the ultimate emergency lever. You try to dress up and act like Diana all over again. Welcome back to Royal Insider Network, by the way. If you are as utterly appalled or frankly as completely exhausted by this endless Meghan and Harry circus as I am, do me a huge favor right now. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and drop a like on this video. We bring you the deep dive breakdowns and the raw royal truths that Montecito desperately tries to sweep under the rug every single week. So join the network, drop a comment with your thoughts, and let us get right into the actual reality behind this bizarre identity crisis. Because the cold, hard reality is that Meghan Markle is suffering from a massive chronic identity crisis. From her fashion choices to her public persona, everything about her feels like a second-rate copy of someone else.
Everything about this is exactly the same. And it's very single white female. It's very stalkerish. And it's very much Meghan doesn't know who she wants to be. And she desperately, I think, wants to be as beloved as her mother-in-law.
It is a toxic mix of a colossal narcissistic ego and deep-seated crippling insecurity. She desperately wants the global adoration that Princess Diana commanded, but she lacks the basic authenticity to earn it on her own. So instead of building a real identity, she just glues herself onto whoever she thinks the public loves. But as we break down the history of these blatant fashion copies, you're going to see how this desperation has completely ruined her standing in the public eye. To truly understand why Meghan Markle's constant imitation of Princess Diana alienates so many people around the world, you have to understand the fundamental difference between paying a genuine homage and engaging in pure, unadulterated copying. Fashion has always been a language in royal circles. It is a powerful way to send subtle messages, honor history, and connect generations. But there's a very fine line between honoring someone's memory with elegance and turning someone else's iconic wardrobe into a cheap Halloween costume. Look at Catherine, the Princess of Wales. Over the years, Kate has paid numerous beautiful, subtle tributes to her late mother-in-law. When Kate stepped out on the steps of the Lindo wing after giving birth to Prince George, she wore a lovely light blue polka dot dress designed by Jenny Packham.
There's a creepiness about it when you think about it. I guess Meghan Markle is mommy in this scenario. I guess she's sugar mommy. There's just something very, very creepy about it.
It was a gentle, affectionate nod to the green polka dot dress Diana wore when presenting baby Prince William to the world back in 1982. Years later, after giving birth to Prince Louis, Kate wore a vibrant red dress with a delicate white lace collar, mirroring the red outfit Diana wore when she brought baby Prince Harry home from the hospital. Those were classic examples of a respectful homage. Kate took the emotional essence of a historic moment, adapted it to her own personal style, and maintained her own unique identity. You look at Kate, and you see Catherine, the Princess of Wales, honoring the past while standing firmly as her own woman. She understands her body type, she understands her role, and she never allows the tribute to override her own authentic self. Now contrast that with Meghan Markle. With Meghan, it is almost never a subtle homage. It is a literal one-to-one carbon copy recreation that completely ignores context, body proportions, and basic dignity. Think back to her trip to Birkenhead back in 2019. Meghan stepped out wearing a glaring, eye-searing combination of a bright red coat over a vibrant purple dress.
That's, of course, sad for Meghan in many ways, but also reflects why she's failed so much. It's because people know she's fake. People look at her and they don't see an authentic person. They see a weird cosplay uncanny valley of somebody else.
Now, why on earth would anyone choose that specific color clash? Because Princess Diana famously wore that exact same bold red and purple color combination during a high-profile visit to Thailand in 1989 and again at the Taj Mahal. But Diana had the towering height, the athletic frame, and the fashion gravitas to pull off such an extreme avant-garde look. Meghan simply copied the colors without understanding how to tailor the silhouette to her own frame, resulting in an awkward, disjointed ensemble that looked less like high fashion and more like an aggressive cry for attention. And the list of literal copies just goes on and on. We saw her stepping out in a casual, oversized white button-down shirt paired with ripped denim jeans, echoing Diana's famous casual look from the late 90s. We saw her carrying the iconic Lady Dior handbag, the very bag named after Princess Diana, except Meghan had her own monogram Duchess of Sussex stamped on it in massive letters, as if trying to physically replace Diana's name with her own commercial title. We saw her wearing a bright red coat paired with a black wide-brimmed hat, copying Diana's iconic Christmas Day outfit from 1993.
She is highly contrived. She is highly fake. And this is why she has failed. I don't understand why she has fans, to be honest, because what you're seeing is not the real Meghan. What she says is not real. How she acts is not real.
We even saw her stepping out in a green emerald-toned Amelia Wickstead cape dress during her final royal engagement, mimicking the famous green outfit Diana wore at the Trooping the Color ceremony decades prior. When you look at these side-by-side comparisons, it becomes blindingly obvious that Meghan is not taking artistic inspiration. She is acting like an actress entering a wardrobe trailer, picking out costumes worn by a far more famous figure and hoping that wearing the clothes will magically grant her the same global love. It demonstrates a complete lack of personal style and an absolute absence of self-awareness. She does not alter the design to suit her frame. She just wears the replica and expects the world to applaud. It is shallow, it is transparent, and frankly, it makes the public incredibly uncomfortable. And this uncomfortable fashion copying has alienated fashion critics and royal watchers for years. But the obsession with clothing was only the beginning, because a single deeply unsettling photograph taken for a major magazine photoshoot exposed a psychological dynamic that was far more disturbing than any outfit. If you thought the constant costume copying was troubling, the psychological manipulation embedded inside their staged photography takes this dynamic into a completely bizarre territory. To see just how deep this obsession runs, you have to look closely at their famous portrait for Time magazine's 100 Most Influential People issue. That cover photo became an instant global meme, mocked endlessly across social media. But underneath the internet jokes lies a deeply eerie, disturbing pattern that tells you everything you need to know about the power dynamic in Montecito. In that infamous cover shot, Meghan is standing aggressively in the center of the frame, dressed in all white legs, spread wide in a stark power pose, occupying the vast majority of the picture. Prince Harry is literally cowering behind her. He is positioned slightly below her, leaning his entire body against her shoulder, peering out from behind her torso like a nervous child seeking shelter behind a parent. The internet immediately roasted the image, with commentators pointing out that Harry looked less like a royal prince and more like Meghan's personal hairdresser or a timid assistant waiting for instructions. But royal historians and keen-eyed observers instantly spotted something far more sinister than a bad editorial pose. That exact positioning, the son standing behind a dominant female figure, resting his chin and hands gently on her shoulder, was an almost exact one-to-one recreation of a very famous portrait of a young Prince Harry standing behind his late mother, Princess Diana. Think about the psychological implications of that for a second. It is deeply, intensely unsettling. You have a grown woman in her 70s, adjacent mindset, married to a prince who tragically lost his mother at the tender age of 12. And instead of helping her husband heal from that profound childhood trauma, instead of encouraging him to build a healthy, independent adult identity, Meghan actively orchestrates a commercial photo shoot where she positions herself in the exact physical role of his deceased mother. She places herself as the dominant protector, the maternal anchor, while Harry plays the role of the vulnerable, dependent child, leaning on her for strength. Psychologists and body language experts have looked at that dynamic and pointed out how deeply unnatural it is. It crosses the line from fashion inspiration into a bizarre, uncanny valley of emotional manipulation. Is Meghan acting as his wife, or is she playing the role of a surrogate mother figure? Is she his equal partner, or is she playing sugar mommy to a damaged prince who cannot function without her guidance? It creates a deeply uncomfortable reaction in the viewer because it feels so intensely calculated, so profoundly artificial and frankly borderline predatory. And this pattern of weaponizing Diana's memory inside their private relationship shows up over and over again. Harry himself admitted in his television interviews and in his book, Spare, that he saw the exact same press obsession, the exact same panic, and the exact same isolation in Meghan that he remembered in his mother. But who fed him those ideas? Who constantly pointed out the supposed similarities? It was Meghan herself, constantly whispering into his ear, framing every negative headline, every critical article about her poor behavior as a continuation of the press persecution that destroyed Diana. She used his deepest, most painful childhood wound to lock him into a defensive posture against his own family. By convincing Harry that she was the living reincarnation of Diana, a victim trapped inside an unfeeling royal system, Meghan secured his absolute, unwavering loyalty. Whenever King Charles or Prince William tried to raise legitimate concerns about Meghan's treatment of staff, her rude behavior, or her commercial schemes, Harry did not hear reasonable advice from his family. He heard the monarchy trying to destroy another Diana. It was a masterclass in emotional leverage. She took a traumatized prince, wrapped herself in his mother's clothes, adopted his mother's poses, and convinced him that saving Meghan was his second chance to save Diana. It is a profoundly unhealthy foundation for any marriage, and as her constant attempts to play the role of Diana failed to win over the public, Meghan's frantic search for a workable public image forced her into an endless, chaotic cycle of rebranding. Because the Diana cosplay failed to deliver the uncritical global adoration she felt entitled to, Meghan Markle has spent the last 5 years trapped in a chaotic, exhausting labyrinth of constant corporate rebrandings. When one persona fails to capture the public's imagination, she simply discards it, wipes the slate clean, and rolls out a brand new identity, hoping that this next iteration will finally be the one that sticks. But the public is not stupid. People notice when someone is constantly changing their personality like a coat in winter, and it has created a massive, unbridgeable authenticity gap. Look at the endless stream of identities she has tried on since stepping away from royal duties in 2020. First, she was going to be the high-minded global humanitarian diplomat, sitting on virtual panels, giving solemn speeches about structural inequality and media ethics from her multi-million-dollar Montecito mansion. When the public found that intensely preachy and hypocritical, she suddenly pivoted to tech podcaster, launching archetypes on Spotify, trying to position herself as a thoughtful intellectual, examining the labels that hold women back. But that collapsed spectacularly when podcast executives realized she lacked the work ethic to produce content, eventually dropping her contract and publicly labeling them grifters. Then came the Hollywood producer phase, securing a massive Netflix deal to create inspirational content. But when her animated series Pearl was quietly canceled before a single episode was produced, and their tell-all docuseries exposed them as bitter and vengeful, that corporate identity crumbled too. So what did she do next? She pivoted to the lifestyle guru space, launching her newest commercial venture, American Riviera Orchard, which was later rebranded simply as Ever. Suddenly, the woman who spent years living in high-end luxury, flying on private jets, and wearing $40,000 designer gowns, was trying to sell herself as a humble, earthy cottagecore homemaker. She released glossy promotional videos of herself walking barefoot through orchards, baking dog biscuits, making strawberry jam, and typing inspirational notes on vintage typewriters. She started aggressively copying the aesthetic of successful lifestyle moguls like Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop, Pamela Anderson's minimalist natural phase, and even Martha Stewart's classic entertaining brand. Lately, she has even started wearing thick retro headbands in every public appearance at local farmers markets and her promotional clips at private dinners. Did Meghan Markle ever wear headbands during her years as an actress or a working royal? Absolutely not. But headbands are suddenly trending among young high society influencers, so Meghan immediately adopts the accessory, trying to project a breezy, effortless, youthful aesthetic. It is completely unnatural. It looks forced. It looks contrived and it feels like a 40-something woman, desperately scrolling through Instagram trends, picking out random aesthetic pieces and trying them on to see if the public will buy it. The fundamental flaw in all of these commercial ventures is that there is zero genuine substance behind the aesthetic. In her promotional videos for her lifestyle brand, you see her carefully staging shots of freshly baked bread, arranging flowers in rustic vases, and pouring tea into vintage china. But commentators and viewers quickly pointed out a hilarious telling detail: Meghan never actually eats the food she prepares on camera. She poses with the jam, she smiles with the baked goods, but she never takes a single bite. The entire production is a hollow commercial set. It is a set built to sell $40 jars of overpriced jam to a public that has already seen right through the illusion. When you look at successful lifestyle leaders like Martha Stewart, people buy their products because Martha actually knows how to cook, how to garden, and how to build a home. There is decades of genuine experience and passion backing up the brand. With Meghan, there is no underlying passion for culinary arts or homemaking. There is only a desperate desire to monetize her royal title before her public relevance vanishes entirely. She is constantly chasing the next trend, the next aesthetic, the next corporate identity, because deep down inside she has no core foundation of her own. She does not know who she is, so she tries to be everyone else. She can cycle through 100 different wardrobes and lifestyle brands every single year. But there is one fundamental reason why Meghan Markle will never ever achieve the legendary affection that Princess Diana possessed. The ultimate tragedy of Meghan Markle's endless effort to copy Princess Diana is that she completely misses the single most important quality that made Diana a global icon in the first place. Diana was not beloved because of her designer clothes, her tiaras, or her magazine covers. She was not idolized because she maintained a flawless, micromanaged public relations strategy. Princess Diana was adored by hundreds of millions of people across the globe because she possessed a raw, unscripted, vulnerable authenticity. When Princess Diana walked into a room, she was not thinking about camera angles, lighting filters, or corporate sponsorships. She had an instinctual, genuine empathy for human suffering. When she walked into a London hospital ward back in 1987 and shook the hands of an AIDS patient without wearing gloves, she did not do it to boost her social media follower count or promote a lifestyle brand. She did it out of pure, unadulterated human compassion at a time when the world was paralyzed by fear and stigma. She made herself small so that the cause could become big. When she walked through an active landmine field in Angola in 1997, wearing a simple protective vest and jeans, she pointed the world's media spotlight entirely away from herself and toward the forgotten victims of war. Diana's famous public appeal was built on a very simple, unshakable philosophy. This is who I am. Take me or leave me. She admitted her flaws. She showed her pain. She stumbled. She cried. And she was fiercely, unapologetically real. People connected with her human frailty just as much as they connected with her royal glamour. Meghan Markle operates in the exact opposite direction. Everything about Meghan's public presence is hyper-contrived, obsessively micromanaged, and suffocatingly staged. Every single smile is rehearsed, every gesture is calculated for maximum publicity, and every public appearance is filtered through an army of public relations handlers, brand strategists, and legal advisors. She wants all the perks of Diana's iconic status, the global reverence, the red carpet deference, the commercial power, without being willing to do any of the actual unglamorous hard work that earned Diana that love. Look at how they approach charitable work. When Diana visited vulnerable people, she spent hours listening to their stories without a camera crew in sight. When Meghan and Harry visited a women's shelter, Meghan spent the afternoon writing inspirational messages on bananas with a Sharpie marker for vulnerable women, ensuring that photographs of her handiwork were immediately distributed to international media outlets. When they attended a charity polo match in Miami to raise funds for children living with HIV, Meghan brought a commercial Netflix camera crew along, pushed charity executives out of the photo call so she could hold the trophy, and turned a humanitarian event into a commercial shoot for her docuseries. Meghan does not make the cause the biggest thing in the room. She makes herself the biggest thing in the room and reduces the charitable cause to a convenient backdrop for her personal branding. It is a completely selfish, transactional approach to philanthropy. And the global public intuitively feels that dishonesty. You cannot fake genuine warmth. You cannot fake authentic empathy. When people look at Meghan Markle copying Diana's poses, wearing Diana's jewelry, and mimicking Diana's tragic gaze, they do not see a modern continuation of the people's princess. They see a calculated actress performing a role in a play she wrote herself. They see someone who views royal duty not as a sacred obligation to serve the public, but as a corporate stepping stone to secure wealth, fame, and Hollywood privilege. Diana's legacy was built on selflessness and genuine emotional connection. Meghan's brand is built on vanity, grievances, and commercial exploitation. And no amount of PR spin can ever bridge that massive moral chasm. And when you step back and look at the full picture of where this tragic obsession has led, the final verdict becomes brutally clear. So, step back for a moment and look at the full, undeniable picture of where this endless cycle of imitation and royal warfare has brought the Duke and Duchess of Sussex today. Prince Harry thought he was escaping a trapped life inside the British monarchy to find ultimate freedom in California. 6 years later, look at where that so-called freedom has landed him. He is a defendant in the English High Court, sued for defamation by Senta Bailey, the very children's HIV charity he co-founded in his late mother's memory. The woman running that charity publicly declared that the single biggest risk facing those vulnerable children was the toxic public image of Prince Harry himself. He faces 18 straight months of published legal pleadings, catastrophic headlines, and a brutal mandatory disclosure process that will expose every private WhatsApp message and email between him and his wife to the public record. Meghan Markle thought she could step away from royal duties, build a multi-billion-dollar global brand, and use Princess Diana's memory as an endless commercial pipeline. 6 years later, her Spotify deal is dead. Her Netflix contract has been downgraded. Her lifestyle brand is struggling to launch, and her public approval ratings on both sides of the Atlantic are sitting at historic lows. That staged poolside birthday photo jumping into a pool in a black swimsuit with balloons was not a celebration of success. It was the frantic, transparent reaction of a woman who knows her public relations strategy has completely collapsed. The 47-minute meeting at Highgrove House set the final, unyielding boundary. King Charles showed warmth as a grandfather in private, but total unyielding firmness as a sovereign by locking down the narrative. No official photos, no stay at Buckingham Palace, no royal backdrop for commercial filming, and zero tolerance for media manipulation. The palace officially shut the door on their half-in, half-out commercial fantasy. And look at the other brother. Prince William has never had a charity sue him. He has never faced a regulator's complaint, never had a staged graveside photo leak to American magazines, and never had to explain his private conduct to a judge. William honors his mother's memory every single day. Not by posting staged photos on Instagram or wearing her clothes for commercial gain, but by raising his family with dignity, serving his nation with quiet strength, and keeping his private grief private. Years ago, a senior figure offered Meghan Markle 6 simple words of advice. After a charity visit was overshadowed by PR theatricality, the focus is the charity. It is never about you. Princess Diana understood that rule instinctively. She made herself the smallest thing in the room and the cause the biggest. Her younger son put her name on a charity, and that charity is now suing him because his ego became larger than the cause. Her elder son carries her face, her name, and her legacy, and he has never once needed to explain his conduct to a court of law. You can copy a style, you can buy the same clothes, you can hire the same photographers, and you can mimic the exact same poses. But you cannot buy authenticity. You cannot copyright genuine human empathy. Princess Diana's true legacy does not belong to a commercial brand in California, and it certainly cannot be inherited through a wardrobe change. It lives in the hearts of the millions of ordinary people she touched around the world, and in the quiet dignity of the son who simply lives her values every day. One brother lost everything trying to monetize Diana's name. The other brother never needed to carry the name, he just lived it. If you think King Charles and Prince William are entirely right to maintain this ironclad wall against the Sussexes, show your support right now. Hit that like button, subscribe to Royal Insider Network, and ring that notification bell so you never miss another deep dive breakdown. What do you think Meghan's next move will be now that her commercial brand is stalling? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. I read through every single one. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the very next video. We have just received word of a massive, unprecedented crisis unfolding inside Buckingham Palace, folks. A confidential message reached King Charles, and it has instantly transformed an already fragile royal dispute into a deeply personal, high-stakes confrontation. You see, Meghan Markle had not simply requested permission to step back into the world of working royal duties. She had presented herself under a title explicitly connected to Princess Diana, a title that the palace had deliberately and strictly prohibited anyone from ever using. King Charles read this wording twice, placed the document flat on the table, and demanded to know immediately who had allowed it to reach his desk. You could feel the anger rising in the room before anyone even dared to speak. Meghan had spent years outside the working monarchy, yet every single suggestion of a return seemed to deeply unsettle the royal household. A working royal, after all, is someone who performs official duties on behalf of the crown, and she was now asking to step right back toward that world on terms that reopened the most painful wounds in modern British history. The king looked once more at the phrase written near the very top of the request, Diana's royal successor. That ceremonial description had been privately forbidden because it suggested that one person could somehow inherit Diana's public identity, her emotional place in the hearts of the world, and her unique global influence. To Charles, those words did not merely challenge palace protocol. They turned the memory of his deceased former wife into leverage during a high-stakes negotiation over royal status, access, protection, and power. Before we go deeper into what this explosive moment really means for the future of the monarchy, do me a quick favor right now. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and drop a like on this video. Welcome back to Royal Insider Network, where we bring you the raw truths and deep dive breakdowns that Montecito tries to sweep under the rug. Drop a comment below with your thoughts, and let us get right into what really went down behind palace walls. Because Meghan's proposal went far beyond a symbolic gesture, didn't it? She wanted full access to Windsor, an official presence alongside senior working royals, fully restored high-level security and public recognition as the natural continuation of Diana's humanitarian mission. Each one of those demands carried massive risk on its own, but together they formed something far more dangerous. A calculated route back into royal life, built around the one name the monarchy could never ever treat casually. Charles stood beside the long table and read the page in total silence. He removed his glasses, placed them beside the message, and fixed his gaze on the waiting aide. "That title will not enter this family," he said. His voice was quiet, but his decision was absolute. To truly understand why those 4 words set off such an absolute firestorm behind palace walls, you have to look at the 3 people sitting at the heart of this storm, because Charles, William, and Meghan were carrying 3 entirely different versions of the exact same history, weren't they? For King Charles, any mention of Diana brings back one of the most painful, turbulent chapters of his entire life. It reopens decades of public judgment, severe personal scrutiny, and deeply uncomfortable questions about love, betrayal, and regret. The monarchy is not just a family, it is an institution, and Charles knew that allowing anyone to claim Diana's mantle would completely shatter the fragile stability he had worked so hard to build since taking the throne. Then you have Meghan's perspective. Over in California, she viewed Diana through a completely different lens. To her, Diana was the ultimate symbol of independence, rebellion, and survival. A woman who entered the royal system with bright eyes, only to be isolated, hunted by the press, and crushed by rigid traditions. So in Meghan's mind, using that title was not some shameless act of theft. She genuinely saw it as a badge of honor, a recognition that she was fighting the exact same institutional battles that Diana fought decades ago. But Charles heard something much colder inside those words, didn't he? He heard a calculated attempt to transform historical suffering into modern authority and to turn a dead woman's memory into a bargaining chip for royal privileges. And then, of course, there is Prince William. William received the exact wording of Meghan's request while he was preparing for a scheduled briefing in his office. When his eyes hit that phrase, Diana's royal successor, his entire expression changed in an instant. He dismissed the aide waiting in the room, closed the leather folder, and sat in complete silence for several minutes. You see, for William, this was not about palace rules or administrative red tape. This was a direct, aggressive intrusion into his mother's sacred identity. He has spent his entire adult life guarding her memory, making sure that her name is treated with dignity rather than turned into a circus. He believed her legacy belonged neither to Meghan nor to the institution itself, and he was damned if he was going to let anyone use it as a backdoor key to regain royal power. You know, the forbidden title had not just appeared out of thin air either. It was born out of an earlier, highly secret palace confrontation that took place months prior, far away from media cameras and public ceremonies. It happened during a private planning meeting at Kensington Palace regarding a proposed Diana Memorial Initiative. Meghan had entered that meeting fully convinced that her proposal would be warmly welcomed as a gracious olive branch, a genuine gesture of reconciliation. The project was meant to focus on homelessness, mental health awareness, and supporting vulnerable children, causes that aligned perfectly with the humanitarian work she and Harry had been pursuing in the United States. To Meghan, participating in this program was not a demand for power. It was a humble chance to return to public life through meaningful service. But William saw the proposal through a completely different set of eyes. He knew that Diana's name had a unique, almost magical power to draw global media attention, massive charitable donations, and deep public sympathy. But he also knew just how easily that incredible influence could be co-opted into a personal brand strategy. William feared that the moment one living person was presented as the continuation of his mother Diana's memory would cease to be a sacred legacy and instead become a competitive corporate position that people could fight to inherit. The turning point in that closed-door meeting came when a senior courtier began reading aloud from Meghan's written proposal, describing her as a possible modern continuation of Diana's compassionate mission. Before the courtier could even finish the sentence, William placed one hand flat on the wooden table and cut him off instantly. His voice was eerily controlled, but the message was razor-sharp. "No living member of this family will ever be presented as her successor," William said. "Not Meghan, not Catherine, and not even her sons." Meghan felt that rejection land like a physical blow. She believed the palace was more than happy to exploit Diana's image when it suited their public relations narrative, yet completely unwilling to let anyone challenge their rigid control over her story. William, on the other hand, walked away, knowing he had just protected his mother from being reduced to a marketable royal role that could be awarded, inherited, or monetized. Neither side budged an inch, and an icy, impenetrable silence settled between them. That icy rejection should have ended the discussion right then and there. But Meghan refused to back down, and the forbidden document presented directly to King Charles was about to ignite a face-to-face clash that shattered any remaining illusion of family harmony. When the face-to-face meeting between King Charles and Meghan Markle finally took place, there were no cameras, no ceremonial uniforms, and certainly no friendly small talk. It was a cold, highly restricted audience granted only after Meghan insisted that her request was strictly about family reconciliation rather than demanding a permanent return to full-time working royal status. A restricted meeting inside palace walls meant the environment was suffocatingly controlled. There was no promise of official duties, no media access, and zero ceremonial fluff. Meghan believed that this setup gave her room to negotiate her terms. Charles believed it removed every single excuse. Between them on the heavy mahogany table sat a single printed document containing her request with Diana's name printed clearly across the top. For several tense minutes, neither of them touched it. Then King Charles slowly pushed the page across the polished wood toward Meghan and asked her directly to explain why she had used a title that he had personally and explicitly forbidden. Charles wanted the absolute truth. Was this phrase a calculated, aggressive demand? Or had Meghan simply used it as an emotional description without grasping the catastrophic weight behind it? Meghan did not hesitate for a single second. She looked the king dead in the eye and told him that the phrase was not about arrogance. It was about survival courage and standing up against the exact same institutional pressure and media hostility that Diana had faced decades ago. Charles gripped the edge of his chair, holding his voice as steady as humanly possible. "You do not inherit her name simply because you suffered inside this family," he said. The words hung heavily in the quiet room. Meghan shot back immediately, arguing that she was not trying to steal Diana's identity. She claimed she was merely continuing the same global fight against media cruelty, isolation, and a rigid, unfeeling system that always prioritizes protecting the institution over protecting vulnerable women. But you see, the king's famous restraint was beginning to crack. When Meghan openly suggested that the modern monarchy was repeating the exact same tragic mistakes it made in the 90s with Diana. Charles pushed back with a sudden sharp anger that he could no longer hide. He accused her of weaponizing private pain whenever she wanted something from the crown, whether that was diplomatic security, official access, commercial influence, or public sympathy. He told her plainly that using Diana's name as leverage was an insult to the family and an insult to the memory of the dead. Meghan, refusing to back down, responded that the palace calls every legitimate challenge manipulation simply because the institution is terrified of losing total control over its own narrative. She then slid the document back across the table toward the king, flatly refusing to alter or remove the title, unless the palace was willing to sit down and properly negotiate her list of conditions, including access to royal residences and official security backing. Charles did not sit back down. He closed the leather folder with a firm, decisive thud, placed his hand over it, and declared the meeting officially finished. There was nothing more to discuss. And that is when Meghan revealed the one trump card she had been holding back. The detail Charles had not expected. She calmly informed the king that a public version of her proposal had already been drafted by her team in California. If private negotiations failed and the palace refused to engage, that statement could easily find its way into the international media, attaching her return campaign directly to Diana's legacy in the eyes of the global public. Charles stood tall, his eyes narrowing as he issued a stern, solemn warning. He told her in no uncertain terms that any public deployment of that phrase would trigger an immediate formal sovereign response. An official statement carrying the full weight and authority of the reigning monarch would be issued publicly, denying any connection whatsoever between Meghan's commercial status and Princess Diana's historic legacy. It would leave zero room for private interpretation and would effectively banish them from the royal fold forever. The king opened the heavy wooden door and stepped aside, signaling that her time was up. The official negotiation was over, but the drama was far from finished. Because waiting right outside in the dimly lit corridor was Prince William, and he had absolutely no intention of letting Meghan walk out of that palace without hearing exactly what Diana's eldest son thought of her grand scheme. King Charles walked out of that room as a monarch who had drawn an unyielding line, but right outside that heavy wooden door, waiting in the shadows of the corridor, was not another royal advisor. It was Diana's eldest son, ready to deliver a confrontation far more personal and devastating. As Meghan stepped out into the private corridor, the silence was almost deafening. Prince William was standing at the far end of the hallway, completely alone. He was not carrying a briefing folder. He was not accompanied by any private secretaries or palace advisors, and he did not raise his voice by even a fraction of a decibel. And honestly, that quiet, unshakable composure made the moment 100 times more terrifying than if he had been shouting. For years, the bitter disagreements between the Sussexes and the Prince of Wales had been filtered through carefully worded media statements, explosive TV interviews, and third-party spokespeople. But now, Diana's eldest son was facing the woman who was actively trying to claim symbolic succession to his mother's legacy. There were no cameras, no PR handlers, and no buffers between them, just unresolved raw history. William was not wearing a crown or royal regalia that day, but his authority in that hallway was absolute. Charles was the sovereign who commanded the institution, yes, but William held something no official title could ever confer: the undisputed emotional right of a son protecting the sacred memory of his late mother. William looked at Meghan and laid down a brutal reality check. He told her flatly that he would personally block any arrangement, public or private, that attempted to link her image to Diana's former charities, her past residences, ceremonial objects, or her public legacy. He refused to let a single symbol connected to his mother be co-opted into a Hollywood PR campaign. His tone was icy, but you could hear the profound, deep-seated pain beneath every single word he spoke. He reminded her that Diana was a human being, a loving mother who held him in her arms long before she became an iconic public symbol to be dissected by media commentators, commercial brands, or calculated royal campaigns. "She was my mother," William said quietly, his voice trembling slightly with suppressed emotion. "She is not a brand name, and she is not a stepping stone." Meghan stood her ground, refusing to step back or look away. She argued that William did not own Diana's global message, nor did he hold an exclusive monopoly on public suffering. Pain, she insisted, does not belong exclusively to a prince simply because he was born into a palace. She told him that the very same isolation, institutional cruelty, and relentless press hostility that crushed Diana had existed in her own life, and no one had the right to invalidate her lived experience. William did not dispute her feelings, or deny that she had experienced public pressure. But he fiercely rejected the bizarre conclusion she had drawn from it. He told her in crystal clear terms that shared emotional pain does not give anyone the right to appoint themselves as Diana's official successor, especially when using that self-proclaimed title to negotiate for high-level security palace access and commercial influence. Grief might create understanding, William told her coldly, but it does not grant you a royal title. Then William did something that signaled the absolute end of the line. He reached out, took the official palace visitor pass resting in the folder Meghan was holding, and placed it down on a nearby side table. It was a quiet, deliberate gesture, but its symbolic meaning was devastatingly final. The discussion was no longer a negotiation between family members. She was officially being stripped of access and escorted out. William then revealed his final move, one that proved the palace was 10 steps ahead of Montecito. He informed her that he had already signed a formal administrative directive ordering an immediate comprehensive review across every charitable foundation, public project, and commercial agreement associated with the royal household. This review ensured that Meghan's name could never legally or officially appear alongside Diana's in any project moving forward. Meghan looked at him, and you could see the sudden realization wash over her face. This was no longer just an argument with an angry relative. The entire institutional weight of the British monarchy was moving against her with terrifying administrative precision. Every single door she had tried to pick open was being locked, bolted, and sealed from the inside. By the time she turned on her heel to leave the corridor, the forbidden title had not opened the palace gates at all. It had caused those gates to slam shut harder and more permanently than ever before. Within hours, the administrative hammer began to fall. Her request was officially scrubbed from the list of actionable palace matters. Scheduled meetings with charitable representatives were quietly canceled. Her proposed visit to Windsor was permanently removed from the royal calendar, and security officials were formally instructed that no future public appearance by the Sussexes could ever be classified as semi-royal or tied to Diana's historic role. Every single path Meghan had hoped to use for a grand triumphant return was being systematically demolished, one official memo at a time. And as this administrative hammer fell across the palace, the real explosion was about to happen behind closed doors between Harry and Meghan themselves. When Meghan finally returned to their private quarters, the sheer weight of total failure hit her like a freight train. She received the formal written update from the King's office, sat down in the quiet room, and read the final paragraph twice. She lowered the paper, walked over to the window, and told Prince Harry in a shaking voice that his family had chosen cruel punishment over genuine reconciliation. Harry heard the profound pain in his wife's voice. Of course he did. But for the first time in 5 long years, he also saw a brutal truth that neither of them could run away from anymore. His brother William had drawn an impenetrable line in the sand, and Meghan had crossed it openly with a title that should have never been spoken, let alone written down on official paperwork. Harry found himself utterly trapped in a nightmare between loyalty to his wife and the sacred memory of his late mother. I desperately wanted to protect Meghan from another humiliating royal rejection. Yet deep down in his soul, he understood precisely why William had reacted with such fierce, unbridled fury. He knew that using Diana's name as leverage in a negotiation for security and status was an unpardonable sin in his brother's eyes. Meghan caught Harry's hesitation instantly. To her, his sudden silence felt like the ultimate betrayal, a cowardly surrender to the palace machine. But to Harry, it was the first terrifyingly honest moment of clarity he had experienced since leaving London. He finally realized that this massive crisis could not be blamed entirely on palace hostility or British tabloid press coverage. They had brought this catastrophic wall down on their own heads. After hours of tense phone calls and endless arguments with public relations advisors, Harry asked everyone to leave the room. He needed one private, uninterrupted conversation with his wife. He picked up Meghan's prepared public statement, the draft she had threatened to leak to the global media, and placed it gently on the wooden table between them. For the first time in a very long time, there were no screaming matches about media strategy, no rants about security details, and no legalistic debates about royal protocol. There were just 2 deeply exhausted people sitting in the wreckage of a failed strategy. Harry looked at the forbidden title typed across the top of the page and said something he had avoided saying for years. He told Meghan quietly that defending her against public criticism did not require him to accept that she was his mother's successor. The words hung in the air like a heavy fog. Meghan stared at him, feeling deeply betrayed. For years, Harry had encouraged the public comparisons between the two women. He was the one who had repeatedly claimed on international television that he saw the exact same terrifying press obsession, isolation, and fear in Meghan that he had witnessed in Diana as a young boy. Harry didn't deny that. He explained that Diana's symbolic place in the world was an emotional memory held in the hearts of millions, not an official corporate title that could be passed down or claimed in a legal negotiation. He looked at his wife and told her firmly that the phrase had to be removed immediately and the public statement could never see the light of day. His tone was low, but the decision carried the absolute weight of a man who realized he was about to lose everything if he didn't put a stop to the madness. Releasing that statement would permanently sever his relationship with Charles William into an open war and turn his mother's tragic death into a permanent circus tool. Meghan felt completely abandoned. She argued passionately that the title was about survival, not vanity. She asked him why on earth he had supported the connection for years, only to throw it away the second his father and brother got angry. To her, Harry's sudden change of heart felt like proof that palace pressure still controlled his choices from thousands of miles away. Harry didn't flinch. He looked her straight in the eye and told her that his mother's memory had become a toxic battlefield for their family disputes. Every single argument with the palace, every lawsuit, every explosive interview, and every security fight eventually weaponized Diana's name. He told her flatly that he could no longer allow his mother's legacy to carry another war. Supporting you, Harry said, his voice breaking, has to mean building our own future, not reenacting my mother's tragedy over and over again until there is nothing left of us. Meghan reached out and picked up the prepared statement. She looked down at the words, Diana's royal successor, typed across the page, placed her fingers on the paper, and slowly tore the first page right down the middle. Harry didn't smile, and he certainly didn't claim victory. He simply reached across the table and held her hand as the raw anger between them slowly dissolved into a quiet, painful grief. In that quiet moment, Meghan finally admitted a truth she had kept buried deep inside. Part of her desperate push to secure that title and return to the royal stage came from a profound fear that leaving the monarchy had erased her global importance. Harry nodded, offering his own painful truth. He admitted that measuring every single emotional wound against his mother's life had kept them trapped inside a royal tragedy they claimed they wanted to escape. Meghan officially agreed to withdraw the title, and Harry backed her decision completely. But as they sat there holding hands in the quiet room, both of them knew the devastating reality. The choice had come far too late to contain the damage that was already done. By the next morning, the secret dispute was no longer contained within palace walls. Fragments of the rejected proposal had leaked out to senior editors, and news of the forbidden phrase exploded across international news broadcasts like a bomb. TV channels interrupted their regularly scheduled programming, and royal commentators engaged in ferocious screaming debates on live television over who had the right to define Princess Diana's legacy in the 21st century. Supporters of the Sussexes argued passionately that the rejected title was proof of a cold, outdated monarchy, silencing a powerful, independent woman who dared to challenge its authority. But the broader public reaction was far more unforgiving. Millions of people viewed the attempt to claim Diana's title as an outrageous, unforgivable act of hubris, a shameless effort to monetize a dead princess's memory to boost a failing celebrity brand in America. One powerful image captured the mood of the nation better than any television debate ever could. Outside the gates of Kensington Palace, the historic home forever associated with Diana's memory, a woman laid a simple bouquet of white roses on the cold stone ground. Attached to the flowers was a small handwritten card that read, "Let her be remembered, never replaced." Evening news broadcasts' camera crews zoomed in on that card, repeating the image over and over again until it became the defining symbol of the entire scandal. Over at the national newspapers, the front pages were brutal. One major publication printed an almost entirely black front cover, featuring a photo of Diana on the left and a photo of Meghan on the right. Printed between them in massive, stark white letters were 5 damning words: a legacy, not a title. Inside the palace, King Charles faced immense pressure from senior advisors to issue a blistering public humiliation of the Sussexes. But Charles, demonstrating the quiet wisdom of a reigning monarch, flatly refused to throw more petrol on the fire. Through an internal briefing, he confirmed that Meghan had officially torn up the public statement and withdrawn the request. So rather than launching a public war, the king chose dignified closure. He issued a final sweeping palace directive that permanently settled the matter behind closed doors. The directive explicitly stated that Meghan Markle held no ceremonial, constitutional, or representative connection to Princess Diana's historic role. It permanently barred the use of Diana's name or legacy in any future negotiations regarding royal status, public appearances, or commercial ventures. But Charles also drew a crucial, compassionate boundary. He declared that while private family contact between a father and his son could remain open, no future conversation with Harry would ever reopen negotiations regarding official working roles, diplomatic security privileges, or royal titles. The king had protected his late wife's memory, not by handing her mantle to another person, nor by publicly destroying his son, but by declaring once and for all that Diana's legacy was completely beyond the reach of corporate branding and palace politics. When the news of the final directive reached Montecito, the reality settled in with brutal clarity. The grand comeback tour was officially dead. The Sussex dream of carving out a lucrative half-in, half-out royal role where they could use royal titles to secure multi-million-dollar Hollywood deals had collapsed entirely. The palace doors were not just closed, they were welded shut. You see, at the end of the day, royal roles can be reassigned. Official titles can be stripped and public popularity will rise and fall with the wind. But sacred personal memory cannot be stolen, inherited, or used as a bargaining chip at a corporate negotiating table. Princess Diana's true legacy does not belong to King Charles. It does not belong to Prince William. It does not belong to the institution of the crown, and it certainly does not belong to Meghan Markle. It lives in the hearts of the millions of ordinary people she touched around the world, and in the lives of the two sons who still carry the unbearable pain of her loss every single day. The forbidden title was withdrawn. The royal door remains firmly closed, and the battle over who would replace the people's princess ended with one final, undeniable truth: no one ever could. There was no title powerful enough, no PR strategy clever enough, and no media campaign strong enough to reopen the door that had finally permanently closed. If you think King Charles and Prince William handled this delicate, painful situation with the exact right amount of firmness and dignity, make sure you show your support right now. Hit that like button, subscribe to Royal Insider Network, and ring that notification bell so you never miss another deep dive breakdown. What do you think Harry and Meghan's next move will be now that the royal door is locked forever? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. I read through every single one of them. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the very next video.
It's now a matter of when, not if, he strips Prince Harry and Meghan Markle of their royal titles.
The right thing to do. I mean, the point was that we'd always criticised Charles for being hesitant and backing away from controversy, but I don't think it was Charles's decision in the end. I mean, it was technically, but of course he was forced into it, most likely by Prince William. I think Camilla also said this can't carry on.
That Tom Bower is also getting into. One of the reasons that he wants to leave the USA is because after the Andrew scandal, Harry is now fearful of what is coming for him.
To listen to some of the wild headlines floating around the internet this week, you would think Prince William is sitting inside Kensington Palace with a gold quill, personally drafting a royal decree to strip Prince Harry and Meghan Markle of their Sussex titles once and for all. And let us be completely honest here, folks, that is the exact outcome millions of royal watchers around the globe have been practically begging for. People want to see those titles stripped. They want to see Parliament pass a law. They want King Charles to sign a royal warrant, and they want Montecito stripped of every last piece of royal privilege. But will it actually happen? Is William actively moving behind closed doors to strip those titles through Parliament? Well, today, we are stripping away the sensational headlines and looking at the cold, hard reality behind palace walls. Because saying that William needs to lobby Parliament to pass a law to strip Harry's titles is vastly oversimplifying what is actually going to ruin Harry's life. Prince William does not need to waste a single second filing legal paperwork or negotiating with politicians to strip Harry's titles. Why? Because the cold, brutal reality unfolding right now inside an English courtroom is doing that exact job for him, rendering those titles completely hollow, meaningless, and powerless inside the United Kingdom. While Montecito continues to spin its endless web of professional victimhood, Prince Harry just walked headfirst into his absolute worst legal and public relations nightmare.
What about Meghan and Harry? Because there are reports that Prince Harry, Meghan Markle and their children could be set to lose their royal titles.
The High Court of Justice in London has officially handed down its devastating verdict in Harry's high-profile lawsuit against Associated Newspapers, the publisher of the Daily Mail. And it was not just a minor setback, it was a complete humiliating and total annihilation. The judge systematically dismissed Harry's claims across the board, ruling that his case was built on personal suspicion, emotional grievance, and tabloid paranoia, rather than actual admissible legal evidence. Celebrated investigative biographer Tom Bower took one look at that court ruling and delivered a chilling four-word verdict that sent shockwaves all the way to California. This is the beginning of the end.
Well, you know my mistakes, I say the opposite. I think William is a man who's not in a hurry. I don't think he wants to be king soon. I think he is not that keen on all the different aspects of the monarchy. It's about Harry and Meghan Part 2. There's so much has happened in the last 5 years. Now, my prediction is that Harry is terrified by the stripping of Andrew's title and told Meghan in no uncertain terms that once it's King William, they could well all lose their title and lose everything.
Bower pointed out that Harry entered an English courtroom believing that his royal title and his personal feelings would carry more weight than the rule of law. He thought he was playing the courageous David slaying the media dragon, but instead he walked away completely exposed, facing a potential £50 million debt and handing Prince William the ultimate justification to seal the palace gates forever. Welcome back to Royal Insider Network, by the way. If you are as utterly captivated or frankly as completely exhausted by this endless Meghan and Harry circus as I am, do me a huge favor right now. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and drop a like on this video. We bring you the deep dive breakdowns and the raw royal truths that Montecito desperately tries to sweep under the rug every single week. So join the network, leave a comment with your thoughts, and let us get right into how Prince Harry managed to destroy his own credibility, alienate his family beyond repair, and render those titles completely worthless. To truly grasp why this legal ruling is such a catastrophic disaster for Prince Harry, you have to look at what actually happened inside that courtroom, rather than the sanitized version released by his public relations team.
And I'm a betting man. I'm pretty sure that's what William will do, as the only way to save him from trouble, to get revenge, and to actually save the monarchy too. He can't afford to have the Sussexes in Montecito challenging him, and I don't think Kate would tolerate it either. So if I was Harry, I'd be nervous.
On July 7th, a High Court judge systematically dismantled every single core pillar of Harry's lawsuit against the Daily Mail. The judge made it crystal clear that while Harry may sincerely believe in his heart that he was wronged, the English justice system operates on hard evidence, not on personal grudges, selective memory, or dramatic television interviews. And the reaction from the newspaper group's leadership was swift, brutal, and completely unsparing. Paul Dacre, the long-serving chairman of Associated Newspapers, released a statement that will haunt Harry for years to come. Dacre described the judge's ruling as a momentous victory for truth and free speech, while openly describing Prince Harry as a deeply confused, bitter, and angry young man. Dacre went on to say that there is literally not enough laundry detergent on planet Earth to wash all the private, intimate family dirty laundry that Harry has willingly dragged into the public square for commercial gain. Think about the sheer severity of that statement coming from one of the most powerful media executives in the United Kingdom. Katie Nicholl, appearing on a panel discussing the verdict, offered an even tougher assessment of the fallout. She noted that the only real winners in this multi-year legal war were the army of high-priced barristers and attorneys, while Prince Harry walked away as the undisputed biggest loser on the planet. And when you look at the financial side of this legal collapse, the numbers are genuinely mind-boggling. Legal experts estimate that the total accumulated costs for this sprawling court battle could reach an eye-watering £50 million sterling. Let that number sink in for a moment. £50 million sterling. And here's the absolute kicker that Montecito is desperately trying to hide. Prince Harry does not possess an insurance policy that covers anything close to that staggering figure. Under English civil law, the losing party is routinely ordered to pay a massive portion, if not the entirety, of the winning party's legal fees. If Associated Newspapers files a motion to recover its legal expenses, which they are fully expected to do, Harry could be handed a bill that would shatter his personal bank accounts into 1,000 pieces. Charlotte Griffiths, a senior editor at the Mail, on Sunday raised serious questions about Harry's actual financial solvency following this verdict. She stated publicly that despite the grand illusions of Montecito wealth, Harry does not possess unlimited financial resources. She noted that rumors are already swirling across Los Angeles that Harry is desperately trying to secure another production agreement with Netflix, given that their original 5-year, $100 million deal is coming to an end, with very little left in the pipeline. In Charlotte's own unforgettable words, everything surrounding their financial strategy right now is a total dumpster fire. The financial picture for the Sussexes looks radically different today than it did when they stepped off that flight to California back in 2020. The multi-million-dollar Spotify contract ended in utter humiliation, with senior executives publicly branding them grifters. The massive advance for Harry's memoir Spare was a one-time cash injection, not a recurring revenue stream. Their commercial lifestyle brand has stumbled out of the gate with terrible reviews and zero inventory. And now, at the exact moment their commercial momentum has completely stalled, a potential multi-million-pound legal bill is hurtling toward them like a freight train. Tom Bauer argues that the public often confuses the legal phrase "not proven" with the word "false." In a court of law, saying a claim is not proven means the claimant failed to provide sufficient evidence to meet the burden of proof. But in the court of public opinion, when a man spends 5 years claiming he has definitive proof of media corruption and a judge rules that he actually has no admissible evidence at all, his credibility is utterly destroyed. Harry believed his royal pedigree made his word infallible. The High Court proved that in the real world, facts care nothing about royal titles. Censor in a courtroom is damaging enough for an ordinary citizen. But for a prince whose entire brand relies on selling his personal integrity to American streamers and publishers, it is a fatal blow. And while the financial storm threatens to drain his remaining bank accounts, an even colder, far more lethal punishment was being prepared behind the high walls of the royal estate. While legal commentators were busy calculating the catastrophic financial costs of the High Court ruling, Tom Bauer was looking at a much bigger, far more dangerous shift happening behind palace walls. Bauer pointed out that the real significance of this legal defeat is not just the money Harry lost, but how it fundamentally alters the balance of power inside the royal family. Specifically, Bauer argues that this court ruling hands Prince William the ultimate irrefutable ammunition he needs to permanently seal the door against his younger brother. To understand the strategy Prince William is employing, Bauer draws a direct, fascinating parallel to how the royal family handled the downfall of Prince Andrew. Now, let us be completely clear here. Nobody is suggesting that Prince Harry's actions are identical to the severe allegations surrounding Prince Andrew. That is not the comparison being made. What Bauer is highlighting is the specific methodical process of royal isolation, the step-by-step mechanism by which the monarchy neutralizes a family member whose public brand has become deeply toxic to the institution. Prince Andrew was not stripped of his royal status in a single dramatic parliamentary vote overnight. Instead, as the reputational damage accumulated, year after year, the palace systematically stripped away his official military affiliations, removed his royal patronages, barred him from appearing on the Buckingham Palace balcony, and quietly pushed him out of every official public role. It was a gradual, relentless, and completely irreversible freezing out. Bauer argues that Prince Harry is now facing that exact same systematic isolation. For 6 long years, Harry and Meghan built their entire commercial brand on launching public attacks against the monarchy, giving tearful television interviews, publishing explosive memoirs, and airing private family grievances in multi-part Netflix documentaries. They assumed that their royal bloodline and their public popularity would force King Charles and Prince William to eventually negotiate to offer them a half-in, half-out compromise, or, at the very least, to keep the door open for a grand reconciliation. Prince William has completely shattered that assumption. According to veteran royal biographer Katie Nicholl, William's position regarding his brother is simple, absolute, and entirely non-negotiable. Nicholl flatly stated that any prospect of Harry returning as a working royal is completely dead in the water. In her exact words, those bridges are not just damaged, they are well and truly burned to ash. William views Harry's endless public betrayals, his court battles, and his commercial exploitation of family privacy not as temporary missteps, but as a fundamental breach of trust that can never be repaired. And look at how King Charles is handling the situation in the wake of his ongoing health challenges. While Charles undeniably loves his son as a father, the king is first and foremost the custodian of a 1,000-year-old institution. When Harry flew to London for a brief visit recently, hoping for an extended audience to rebuild ties, he was met with a polite, razor-thin window of time and a firm refusal to provide royal accommodation. Harry was forced to stay in a commercial hotel like any ordinary tourist. The palace cited tight schedules and logistical constraints, but everyone reading between the lines understood the real message: the king will not allow his reign to be hijacked by Montecito drama. Every single time Harry steps foot on British soil, he hopes to project an image of a royal prince on a diplomatic mission of reconciliation. But the reality exposed by this court ruling is that he has zero authority, zero credibility, and zero official backing from the crown. He is an estranged relative operating entirely in a vacuum. William understands something that Harry has never been able to grasp. The British monarchy survives on public trust, dignity, and quiet service. The moment a royal prince turns his title into a commercial weapon and takes his own family to court without solid evidence, he becomes a liability to the state. William is not waiting for Parliament to pass a law stripping Harry's title. By cutting off access, denying palace accommodation, and ensuring Harry never stands alongside working royals again, William has rendered those titles entirely meaningless in the United Kingdom. Harry claimed in his memoir that he had escaped the gilded cage while his brother remained trapped inside the institution. But as William stands alongside the Princess of Wales, steadily guiding the future of the monarchy with overwhelming public support, look at who is actually trapped. Harry is trapped in an endless cycle of costly lawsuits, failing commercial deals, and public skepticism. And as the palace gates lock shut forever, the toxicity of Harry's brand is now spilling over into the one project he loved most on earth. There was once a time when even Prince Harry's fiercest critics would pause and give him credit for one thing: the Invictus Games. Established back in 2014 as a loving, powerful international sporting event for wounded, injured, and sick military servicemen and veterans, Invictus was Harry's crowning achievement. It was genuine, it was impactful, and it showed the absolute best of who Harry was when he was guided by duty rather than personal grievance. For nearly a decade, Invictus was the one noble sanctuary where Harry's reputation remained totally untouched by public relations scandals. But as we look toward the upcoming 2027 Invictus Games in Birmingham, England, that sacred sanctuary is rapidly crumbling under the sheer weight of Sussex toxicity. And the recent High Court disaster has placed the entire future of the Games in a deeply precarious position. Think about how Harry's recent trip to the United Kingdom unfolded. That trip was supposed to be a triumphant, positive publicity push to build excitement for the Birmingham Games. It was supposed to be about highlighting the incredible resilience of military veterans who have overcome catastrophic injuries. Instead, what did the global headlines focus on for 2 straight weeks? They focused entirely on Harry's catastrophic court ruling against the Daily Mail, his endless whining about his police security details, his public snubs from King Charles, and his bitter family feud with Prince William. The veterans competing for those medals were completely pushed out of the picture. Their inspiring stories were buried under a mountain of tabloid drama, court filings, and Montecito spin. Kate Mansi, a senior royal journalist for The Sun, pointed out that courtiers used to humorously refer to Harry and Prince Andrew as the Dukes of Hazzard because everywhere they walked, chaotic and damaging headlines were guaranteed to follow. But for an international charitable event that relies on public goodwill and corporate funding, those chaotic headlines are an absolute poison pill. Tom Bauer raised a deeply troubling question that is currently keeping board members and event organizers awake at night. What happens when the founder of a charity becomes bigger, more controversial, and more toxic than the cause itself? When a founder's personal drama repeatedly hijacks the entire media coverage of a charitable event, corporate sponsors begin to ask very uncomfortable questions. Major international corporations do not write multi-million-dollar sponsorship checks to be dragged into a prince's personal legal battles or family feuds. They donate money to align their brand with honorable, uplifting human stories. We have already seen this exact same nightmare play out with Centabella, the children's HIV charity Harry co-founded in Lesotho in his mother's memory. As media commentator Kinsey Schofield pointed out, when Harry's public brand turned deeply divisive following his attacks on the royal family, Centabella faced massive fundraising hurdles. Major donors quietly stepped away because they did not want their corporate names associated with Montecito publicity stunts, Netflix camera crews, or public relations feuds. Now apply that exact same dynamic to the 2027 Birmingham Invictus Games. Taxpayers in Britain are already raising sharp questions about the massive security costs required to host Harry and Meghan, while corporate partners are quietly evaluating whether the Sussex brand still delivers positive public relations value. To be completely clear, there has been no official announcement that Invictus has lost major sponsors, and the Birmingham Games are still officially scheduled to proceed. But the structural risk highlighted by Tom Bower is undeniable. When Harry brought a commercial Netflix camera crew to a charity polo match in Miami, transforming a humanitarian fundraiser into content for a Hollywood docuseries, he demonstrated a fundamental misunderstanding of charitable work. He made the cause secondary to his personal branding. And now, as he faces an 18-month legal aftermath from the High Court, every appearance he makes under the Invictus banner will be viewed through the lens of his courtroom defeats and his financial desperation. The tragic irony of Prince Harry's life is that in his desperate quest to prove his independence and build a global media empire, he has systematically destroyed the very things that made him beloved in the first place. His military affiliations were stripped, his royal patronages were revoked, his mother's charity ended up suing him, and now his beloved Invictus Games risk becoming collateral damage in his war against the press. He wanted to be viewed as a global humanitarian leader. Instead, he is viewed as a high-risk liability whose presence guarantees controversy. And as commentators around the world predict the imminent collapse of his public life, an even more surprising revelation emerges about the true nature of his marriage. For the past 3 years, practically every tabloid gossip column and YouTube channel on planet Earth has been predicting the exact same thing: the imminent explosive divorce of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Commentators point to their failing business deals, their separate public appearances, their catastrophic court cases, and the immense pressure surrounding their brand, claiming that it is only a matter of time before the Montecito fairy tale comes crashing down in a messy legal separation. However, Tom Bower, a man who has spent years investigating the deepest, darkest secrets of the Sussexes, holds a perspective that completely contradicts the popular narrative. When asked point-blank in a recent broadcast interview whether Harry and Meghan's marriage would survive this crushing wave of legal and financial disasters, Bower did not hesitate for a single second. He answered with absolute, unshakable certainty, yes, they will stay together because they desperately need each other. Now let us be completely clear about what Tom Bower is saying here. He is not describing a sweet, romantic Hollywood love story. He is not suggesting that they are living in bliss inside their Montecito mansion. What Bower is describing is a cold, calculated, highly transactional alliance built on mutual survival and shared dependency. To understand why a divorce will not happen, you have to look at what Harry and Meghan actually become if they separate. Look at Meghan Markle's position. Before she met Prince Harry, she was a mid-level actress on a cable television drama in Canada. Every commercial opportunity, every multi-million-dollar contract with Netflix or Spotify, every magazine cover, and every high society invitation she has received over the past 6 years came exclusively because she married a prince of the United Kingdom. If Meghan were to divorce Harry, she instantly loses her primary source of global relevance. She becomes just another divorced former actress living in Los Angeles. Without Harry standing beside her to provide that direct living link to the British monarchy, the commercial value of her personal brand drops to absolute zero. Hollywood executives do not write tens of millions of dollars in checks to Meghan Markle, the actress. They wrote those checks to the Duchess of Sussex, wife of King Charles's son. Now look at Prince Harry's position. If Harry were to walk away from Meghan and attempt to return to Britain with his tail between his legs, what does he return to? He has no official royal role waiting for him. Prince William has built an iron wall that permanently blocks his return as a working royal. His military titles are gone. His UK residence was revoked. His public credibility in Britain has been obliterated by his court cases and his memoir. If he leaves Meghan, he surrenders the entire narrative he built over the past 6 years. He would have to admit to the entire world that his family was right, that his critics were right, and that his grand American dream was an absolute failure. His massive ego simply cannot tolerate that level of public humiliation. They are bound together in a high-stakes commercial pact. Stand together, and they remain a global media fascination, a polarizing, highly lucrative celebrity power couple that commands international headlines wherever they walk. Separate, and they both instantly evaporate into media irrelevance. Furthermore, as Tom Bower brilliantly pointed out, a divorce would hand their fiercest critics the ultimate undisputed victory. For 6 years, royal biographers, journalists, and millions of observers have predicted that Meghan would eventually walk away once the royal glamour faded and the money dried up. Harry and Meghan are acutely aware of that prediction. They know that split headlines would validate every single word written by Tom Bower, Valentine Lowe, and Tom Bower himself. Neither Harry nor Meghan would ever willingly hand their critics that satisfaction. So instead of a divorce, what we are witnessing is a strategic pivot into mutual preservation. They will continue to present a united front to the world, attending red carpet events, launching new lifestyle products, and filming docuseries together, regardless of how stressful their private reality becomes. Their marriage is the ultimate life raft in a stormy financial sea. They built an entire empire on the illusion that their love was a grand historic romance that defeated the wicked monarchy. To admit that the romance failed would be to admit that the entire war was fought for nothing. They are locked in a cage of their own making, bound by financial necessity and brand survival. And as we step back to look at the complete picture of this fallout, the ultimate lesson of Prince Harry's tragic downfall becomes undeniably clear. So, step back for a moment and look at the full devastating picture of where Prince Harry stands today, after this historic High Court disaster. This is a man who was born into unimaginable privilege, held the deep affection of an entire nation, possessed a shining military career, and had the absolute world at his fingertips. Yet today, through a relentless series of arrogant miscalculations, he stands as a defendant, humiliated in an English courtroom, facing potentially ruinous legal debts, totally excluded by his family and viewed with deep skepticism by the global public. And notice who actually delivered this fatal blow to Prince Harry's life. It was not a shadowy team of palace courtiers operating in secret corridors. It was not a conspiracy by British tabloid journalists. It was not Prince William or King Charles plotting his downfall behind closed doors. Prince Harry did this entirely to himself. Tom Bower used a powerful, haunting word to describe what has happened to Harry's public standing: self-slain. Harry marched into the High Court of Justice in London, armed with nothing more than his royal title, his deep-seated resentments, and a profound sense of entitlement. He genuinely believed that because he is a prince, a High Court judge would simply accept his personal account over hard legal evidence. He expected the court to act as an extension of his public relations machine. Instead, he learned the most painful lesson of his adult life in a court of law: absolute evidence is the only currency that matters. And look at the catastrophic domino effect. This single ruling triggers across every aspect of his life. Financially, he faces a potential £50 million legal reckoning at the exact moment his commercial income streams are drying up. Reputational-wise, every future interview, memoir, or documentary he releases will be met with immediate, widespread public skepticism because a judge has officially ruled that his key allegations lacked evidentiary support. Institutionally, Prince William has been handed the ultimate irrefutable justification to permanently enforce an iron wall, ensuring Harry never represents the crown again. And charitably, his toxic brand threatens to overshadow the very veterans he set out to support through the Invictus Games. Harry once boasted to the entire world on global television that he had secured his freedom, that he had broken free from the oppressive constraints of royal life, while his father and brother remained trapped inside the monarchy. 6 years later, look at where that so-called freedom has led him. He is trapped in an endless cycle of litigation, financial anxiety, and public rejection, while his brother Prince William moves forward with quiet strength, unwavering dignity, and the total support of the British nation. Prince William did not need to pass a law to strip Harry's titles. William simply allowed Harry's own arrogance, recklessness, and lack of discipline to complete the job. Harry still carries the words Duke of Sussex on his stationery, but inside the United Kingdom, inside the palace, and inside the courts of law, those words have been rendered completely hollow. One brother built his life on quiet service duty and respect for the law. The other brother built his life on personal grievance, commercial exploitation, and legal warfare. The outcome of those two radically different paths is now written into the permanent legal record of history. If you believe Prince William and King Charles are entirely right to maintain this iron wall and protect the monarchy from further toxicity, show your support right now. Hit that like button, subscribe to Royal Insider Network, and ring that notification bell so you never miss another deep dive breakdown. What do you think Harry's next move will be when that massive legal bill lands on his desk in Montecito? Do you agree with Tom Bauer that their marriage is a transactional alliance that will survive? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. I read through every single one. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the